those are just extended runs, basically. This guy at the controls, and he's going to throw a wide open Tez Johnson. Tez Johnson heading to the end zone. Touchdown, Oregon. 48 yards.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
They hand it to him. Touchdown! Georgia SEC champions! As every dog digs really deep.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
56-yarder, the win really not a factor. Snap and hold are good. That one is good! At the buzzer, Clemson wins the ACC.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Udo on 2nd and 5, first down and more. Udo might be gone. Races on, past the 40-yard line, inside the 30, inside the 10, and tripped up inside the 5.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
There's Mr. Contact Balance again. Look at Scattaboo go. Tripped up just inside the 20. What an unbelievable first half by Scattaboo.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Paxton, yesterday after the show, reached out to me on a text message. And I joke about this, I think, but I have given my number out to a lot of you because of business or sponsorships or just sometimes to let you vet. And it's been interesting when I do that. But he did reach out to me yesterday evening, and it wasn't about Texas. It was about the fact, he goes, that had to be among all your shows with 365 Sports, one of your top 5 best. I don't know about that. I think we've had some incredible shows, but what he was referring to was how much breaking news was happening once we started. We knew there's a chance that West Virginia would hire somebody. We knew there was the possibility about North Carolina. In fact, that might have been official. But all of that going on pushed back other shows or topics or discussions we had, but it was fun to watch and weave through all of that. And now here we are today with West Virginia and also North Carolina. They have their football coaches.
Yeah, and, West Virginia, like we talked about yesterday, running it back, Bill Belichick. It's either going to be a home run or a loud out, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it's going to be, a home run or a loud out. And we'll see. I'm interested in everybody's opinion about these around. But again, even as much as I don't love the, UCF, West Virginia, the kind of run it back. I prefer maybe a little more innovation. If it works, it works. I'm not the AD. I didn't make the hire. And with Bill Belichick, I can tell you all the reasons why it won't, but if it does, it does. More power to North Carolina. They are as irrelevant in football as any major college athletic department in the country, and it's time to maybe shake that up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to see those decisions become final. We talked a lot about it yesterday, and I guess we're going to talk about it more today, but they're officially official now, and that's great for West Virginia to not have to sit there and wonder any longer about whether or not they were going to have this Rich Rod reunion or whether there was some ace up the sleeve of Ren Baker's sports coat. And we know that it was, in fact, all signs pointing towards Rich Rod, and that ultimately was the direction they decided to go. And then the Bill Belichick stuff at first seemed like just kind of maybe PR kind of moves by his agent because he wanted to coach again, and maybe not all that realistic because, why would Bill Belichick coach at North Carolina with no college coaching experience? And at his age, why would North Carolina maybe even want him? I think was a fair question, but clearly it was the right time for both sides. He wants to keep coaching football. He's undeniable as far as a resume goes, and if you're North Carolina, I know I'm not convinced that it's actually going to work, but I know they're getting more attention for their football program in the last 3 days than they've gotten in the last probably 3 years, and they're going to be talked about like one of the top programs simply because of who their head coach is. So I think from a PR standpoint, it's great. Now you've got to win. If you don't win, it's just going to be another blunder in the football program's history and another washed out former NFL head coach trying to make it in the college game and the most high-profile one ever. But if it does work out, then they'll look like absolutely geniuses, and it will be maybe a move that spurns them into making an even bigger move in the near future.
We'll get to a couple of the official announcements in a minute as far as how they released it for both of those schools, and UNLV on the cusp of their coach too. But this is from Gabby Uridia. I saw this. This was pretty yesterday evening when I got home. Imagine somebody telling you 10 days ago that Scott Frost was the head coach at UCF, Rich Rod was the head coach at West Virginia, Bill Belichick was the head coach of North Carolina. And, yeah, if I would have just blurted that out there 10 days ago, most likely everyone would look at me like, what the hell are you talking about? But there we are with those three hires. Garrett, do you have any of the official? There it is. Welcome back. Rich Rodriguez, the head coach. Take me home. Country Roads. Rich Rodriguez, the head coach. Ren Baker got on the jet, flew down, picked him up, brought him back to Morgantown, and he will be introduced, I think, at some point tomorrow. Good job, it appears. Now, Robert Thornton, who's a huge fan of this show, he always has sent me his responses about anything West Virginia. He's not happy. He told me he didn't like it at all. And so that Robert Thornton in Myrtle Beach, by the way, sent me that email earlier. In fact, it was late last night when I woke up this morning.
Well, why is he not? Is it the traitor has returned kind of a thing, or is it he doesn't like that they're trying to run back something that was almost 20 years ago?
I had it, and then, of course, as I was going to something else, let's see here. As I was going to something else, I lost what he wrote me. So we'll get into that here in just – here it is. It's right in front of me. Ha-ha! From an angry Mountaineer fan, happy to announce I will be entering the transfer portal this week. I appreciate my time as a Mountaineer football fan, but I feel this is the best move for me going forward. I will be taking my talents, go Orange, to Tennessee. As always, thank you for giving us, all the fans, a voice out here, even though it may be from Mountaineer fans, Bobby in Myrtle Beach. And he just said he was pissed off. He never really got too much into it, but he wasn't happy with the hire.
Yeah, I mean, that's not a bad pick if you're going to switch teams. I don't know. I'd go Georgia, though, I think, or maybe Oregon if I was going to flip allegiances, go for the team that's got the best shot at the Natty, but I guess Tennessee's got their own shot, so, hey, maybe that'll work out for you. But, yeah, that's a bit of a dramatic reaction, and I don't know how many others are in that same boat, but there are plenty of people in the boat with him that aren't happy about the Rich Rod move. We outlined that yesterday. It's not a move for everybody. I don't think he was Ren Baker's first choice. I think he probably had his own guys in mind, but Andy Kotelnicki or Brian Hartline either didn't foot the bill this time around or didn't have interest, and so Rich Rod ends up being the guy. But, Ren could have, if he didn't really want to do this, could have kept searching. He could have gone a different route. So clearly there was something that clicked there, and he's not a dumb guy. Like, he knows the history. You had to talk to a lot of people to sign off on this that were around when Rich Rod was around the last time. So a lot of people had to come to grips with what happened years ago and decide whether or not the juice was worth the squeeze, and they think that it is. And so we'll see. Much like the Belichick hire, it could blow up in their face. It could be the move that unites everybody and they become the hottest program in the Big 12. We really have absolutely no idea whatsoever because his last tenure was so long ago that, yeah, he just played in a conference championship game, but there's no way to say, like, oh, well, that worked at Jacksonville State. Like, that means he's going to do this here. No, but it is a fascinating hire to discuss. If it is, alienating people, that's a shame. That's what a lot of coaching hires will do, and this one I know is a bit more personal than just you hired a guy that you didn't want. It's a guy that people don't like in some cases. So that's going to be something he's going to have to try and do in his first few months on the job is mend some fences and soothe over some bad feelings, and I'm sure that'll be a big part of his job along with putting together the team. But, yeah, I don't think you're alone at all. I think you realize that, and I'm curious of how many people stay on that side of the fence versus maybe get wooed back over.
This is from Bobby, again, to more specific about one thing. It's about one game. It's 2007 against Pitt. Remember, they were on the cusp of playing and winning a national championship. He said it's never a great idea to go backwards, especially when that backwards was one-trick pony with a gimmick offense that everyone figured out. See the Pitt game of 07 when the corners cheated up behind the defensive ends and stopped the spread offense, and some lightning in the bottle. White and Slayton, he stumbled upon in recruiting, didn't start until others ahead of them were injured for about 3 of his 7 seasons. He has been mediocre everywhere else he's been. Never a good idea to reclaim someone who walked out on a young student-athletes group literally in the middle of the night who were already reeling.
Yeah, that's the game that's famously one that would have sent them to the national championship. And I know I've heard Pat McAfee tell the story. He missed a couple kicks in that game, got death threats, and that was, I think, the moment that kind of he self-expelled himself from the West Virginia fandom in a way. Like that was a moment that lasted for a few years afterwards where he kind of carried that with him because it was such an ugly moment. And I've heard him kind of talk through, I think it was even like a year or so ago, where he talked about that and how, you know, when he went there for game day and all the kind of like mending of the fences or whatever, the rehabilitation, Ren Baker's played a big role in that with guys like Pat McAfee. And you're smart too, because he's the biggest media star in the world right now as far as sports media goes, maybe besides Stephen A. or someone like that. But that game's famous for all the wrong reasons for West Virginia fans and West Virginia players and supporters. And so, yeah, that's one that probably never fully heals. But yeah, I mean, that's one opinion. There's a lot of others out there on Rich Rod. I don't blame anybody who's not enthralled by the idea. And I'm sure it's kind of hard to ramp yourself up if you're not somebody who's in favor of this to try and get excited now about West Virginia football. But that's going to be the job, again, of Rich Rodriguez and Ren Baker and players on that team to try to get people excited and pumped up. And there are plenty of people that are. So that'll carry them some of the ways. But, yeah, to get everybody all in again is going to be a big challenge for Rich Rod.
Yeah, and look, there's only one way he can do that. The best news about any new coaching hire is there's one currency, right? You can be the nicest guy in the world, you can be the meanest guy in the world. The only way that they'll totally accept you is that if you win. That's the only currency that coaches have. Yep. So winning people over, you can win a press conference all you want. You can win the coaches show all you want. You can go back and go to the famous sports bar that they'll have the coaches show and take calls and take pictures and all that stuff. But they play Pitt pretty dang early in the season, and if he doesn't win that game right off the bat, then he's already 25% more behind than he would be otherwise, right? So they have to go, through all that if he doesn't show immediate results, because this is not a team that he's taking over that was bad. He's taking over a team that was mediocre. So he has to make a mediocre team good. So the mountain is not as tall to climb as someone who's taking over a program that was 1-11. He doesn't have as far to go as, say, Deion Sanders did, right? When he took over Colorado. So he's maybe got less runway because of the past in the situation he steps into now.
Well, listen, when a fan base can hate or not like somebody or not like who they were or whatever, but when they start to see losses mount up, they will want somebody who wins no matter what they may think about you when you left or were you there before, whatever it might be. Bill Belichick introduced at North Carolina today. Some of the highlights from what he said: there will be a heavy NFL presence on his coaching staff. He did dodge the question about whether his son was going to join the staff. That seems to pretty much be the case. Said he met with current players. Freddie Kitchens will remain on the coaching staff at North Carolina. He also said he's already reached out and spoken with Julius Peppers and Lawrence Taylor and some other former great North Carolina Tar Heel football players. I've seen a lot of reaction. I don't know if anyone really knows if this is going to work out or not, but the guy won 6 Super Bowls, 8 overall. It is a little bit unique, but everything today, it seems like in football, college football can be unique. And the guy knows how to win. Lombardi, of course, will be the guy that handles the general manager's position. So Bill Belichick, it's all but said. I thought it was kind of a smoke thing. Like, Craig, you mentioned that the agent may have been floating something out. It's real. he's in Chapel Hill. He will take over the Tar Heels football program.
Yeah, and I'm not surprised to see Freddie Kitchen stay because he's a Belichick guy. I mean, he's in that tree. He's worked for him at a couple different times in the past before, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Joe Judge wind up on that staff. I would not be surprised to see other Belichick reachheads, but I'm curious to see, because he's going to have to do this. He may think he knows everything, but the key is when you change from pro to college like he has, when you change league to league like coaches do, just conference to conference, who are the guys that you go bring in to let you learn the lay of the land and help you with the little things? You know, every high school coach that Bill Belichick calls, I'm sure will be in awe of it, but there's a lot of those guys that they'll be in awe for a minute, but they go to conventions too, so they may not care as much. How do you make sure that you can assure them you're going to take care of their guys? That's going to be the important thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things from this press conference. I saw Dion commented and said, like, basically welcome to college football, to Bill Belichick, and that was cool to see, as I think college football, for all the fear-mongering and worrying about coaches leaving and all that, kind of talked about this yesterday, of maybe parts of it now are actually attractive that wouldn't have been otherwise to a Bill Belichick, to a Deion Sanders if he remains around, and to maybe others in the future that come into the game that years ago might not have thought that would be a possibility. But he brought his dad's like old North Carolina shirt from when he was coaching as an assistant years and years ago. So that was pretty cool to see him like break out this, I don't know how old sweatshirt, but one that he had held on to and one that was his father's, and bring in the North Carolina connection full circle. And that was a really neat moment there. And he talked about how it's just, why are you still coaching? Well, it beats, real work, beats working, I think was exactly what he said, but just referring to it beats real work. And he's obviously a guy who just loves to coach, loves to be a part of having his hands in the clay of molding a program and a team. And he's going to have every opportunity to do that here, where you have to have your hands a lot dirtier than you do in the pro game, where you have all right, we'll go to the draft and we'll have our combine and everybody's doing the same thing. Like here, it's about who outworks people, right? And in a lot of cases. And so I think he's up for that challenge, and that will be very interesting, but he sounds excited about it. He laid out some of his plans. But he did say, the one thing he did say was that there was no 400-page book that he brought or game plan that he brought to his meeting with Bubba Cunningham. So I don't know where that report originated. Maybe it was 399 pages. Maybe it was 800. But he said that wasn't true, that he had some 400-page plan, and that was the thing that everybody got caught up on. I can't believe our media nowadays would get something wrong. But, that was one thing. He was like, oh, that's not quite true. But I guess it's the organizational Bible is what he called it. Anyways, it was interesting. He had a few things that stood out, and I'm interested. I don't know that I think it's going to work out. I have my doubts, but I'm interested to see what it looks like, and I'll be watching or paying more attention to North Carolina football, probably like many, many others, more so now than I did in the last decade or 2 decades or 3 decades even.
Well, they didn't give you a reason to most of the time.
Yeah, I said this. I compared. Somebody sent me a direct message on Twitter that he goes, man, you are right. Almost the same colors, not quite. Is UCLA and North Carolina are both fantastic institutions. They're both really good athletic departments, but their football team at times has had some glitter, but they've never been really good. I'm not saying never, like really good. UCLA occasionally, but they just never have knocked on that door. At least I don't remember they have.
And look, their fan, just based on my interactions with their fan, like last year, when or 2 years ago when all the realignment thing were going on, I said something about UCLA, not being all that big of a get when it came to football power for the Big Ten. I said, because they haven't won a conference title, in forever. And the guy was like, well, it was 1997. And I'm like, buddy, that was a long time ago. And like, when I said that about North Carolina, like it's even been longer for North Carolina when theirs. And, I've my opinions here have been unabashed about North Carolina and how they've failed their football fan base over the last 40 years. And I've not gotten one like, hey, you need to ease up. Their fans pretty much feel the same way.
They've had teams that have won 10 games. They've had Troy Aikman, and they've had others. But as far as
North Carolina,
I'm talking about UCLA, but and North Carolina too. They've had good players. There's no question. They've had some really good players. I did think it was cool that Belichick mentioned Mac Brown in the press conference about what he's also meant to college football.
Yeah, he also said that he was always told his first words were beat Duke because his dad was a North Carolina assistant at the time when he was I was being born and young, and so that was an anecdote that I don't know if that's true or not, but it definitely won over the North Carolina fans a little bit more than they already were won over, and it's a big calculated risk, but it's North Carolina football. To y'all guys' point, I don't think anybody's pushing back, Paul, because I think unlike maybe some other fan bases in other parts of the country, they're realistic and they understand. Like, we know we're not Alabama. We're not like under this delusional thinking that we are some great program because our name is North Carolina. Like in basketball, yeah, absolutely. I want to go into like some other sports. They're up there in the Directors Cup, year by year. Like women's soccer, like, yeah, let's talk about how great North Carolina is. Football, they know better. They know they're not in that conversation, and they don't pretend like just because they're a big school, they're in that conversation. So they're realistic, and I think because they're realistic, that's why it's easier to swallow this hire that you otherwise might be opposed to. If you were a more traditional, consistent, successful program, you'd probably want to go with a more traditional, consistent type of hire, but you're not. So you want to make the big splash? You just made a big old cannonball in the deep end with the Bill Belichick hire, and I don't know how their social media typically goes, but I looked at like one tweet earlier. They had like 8,000 likes on it. I doubt that's normally the case for North Carolina football, but it was today on probably multiple posts. So they're winning the PR side of things, but he's got to go win on the field, obviously, or this is just going to be one of those that we, a year from now, 2 years from now, start putting on lists of worst hires ever. But, I mean, what do they have to lose? Not much, in my opinion.
They had 11 wins with Larry Fedora, who recently was with Baylor. 11 wins in 2015. They've had a pocket or two with others. Mac Brown, in fact, the first time he was there, had 3 teams that won double-digit games. And they've had some others. And UCLA has had like 3 pockets where they won 10 games back-to-back years. Terry Donahue was a hell of a coach. They were really good back then. But that's kind of the history of those programs. Then there's also the story at UNLV. I have not seen this as anything official, but it is official. Now, Dan Mullen, Florida, Mississippi State, he's been on ESPN quite a bit. He now has been hired to replace Barry Odom at UNLV. That now becomes official.
Yeah, I like this hire for them, and I think that although Dan Mullen kind of got worn out by the way recruiting was changing, and he got let go before it got really crazy, before the portal and the NIL got to where it was now. The big thing that happened with him is Kirby Smart was running circles around him. And look, Kirby Smart was running circles around everybody, but in Gainesville, Florida, they can see the vapor trail a lot closer, of what's going on when it comes to one of their big rivals. And so you could tell he just wasn't the same coach. He wasn't the same guy. They had 10 wins at Florida. A guy threw a shoe and everything came unraveled after that. And that's where, kind of Dan Mullen left off. I'm sad to see him go on TV, but I think this is a great job for him to step in and because recruiting is going to be different now and he may not have to do it the same way. And we'll see what kind of backing UNLV reportedly, going to give him kind of the top level of whatever's going on in the Pac-12 Mountain West, kind of those schools, and as they should. And I wish him the best there. So.
Yeah, I think it's a loss for ESPN's college football coverage in some ways, but, I mean, nothing that's going to stop people from watching. I mean, he was good, though, I felt like, in his role on their programming. So, they lose a pretty good analyst that definitely has a future there, again, whenever his career winds him back in that direction. But I figured he was a guy that wasn't long for that he was going to be back in coaching sooner rather than later. And I think UNLV is a really good spot. I mean, look what Barry Odom just turned it into, right? I mean, Barry Odom just flipped it very quickly into not only a successful season and a lot of talk about that program and even kind of flirting with the playoff there at the end and with the conference championship. But then he parlayed that into a Big Ten job. So I think Dan Mullen's looking at that school and saying what a lot of people say of, like, look at all this untapped potential, look at this recruiting hotbed, look at these facilities. You don't necessarily have everything that every program or that you had at Florida at your disposal, but anything you might need is right there in that Las Vegas area, from talent to facilities to whatever. So that's a program a lot of people feel like could be a sleeping giant of sorts. I don't really feel that way in terms of it, like, just needing the right coach to just flip that switch. Like, they need somebody who would stay to do that, and I don't know how realistic that is in their current situation, but can they be one of those programs that becomes known for always having that great next head coach that people always want to keep coming after, that are successfully good, and then just make good hires and stay successful even if guys leave after 2 or 3 years? I think, yeah, absolutely, UNLV can be that program, and I think this is a really nice hire for them to follow up Barry Odom. So, yeah, very interesting move, but one that I'm interested to see how it works.
Houston is Sam Houston State, and Huntsville's looking for a head coach. Casey Keeler, of course, went on to Temple. The finalists include a very impressive list. First of all, Rashad Samples, who's been around Texas quite a bit. He's from Dallas. He's on the Oregon staff. Matthew Pallage at Baylor, the defensive coordinator, secondaries coach. Also, Sean Bell, former Baylor player and coach, also involved. His brother Brian, of course, was a national championship level quarterback at Sam Houston State, along with some other names that are a part of this particular search. Curtis Looper, Tim Doust, and even
Phil
Longo, who's been around.
Samples, did you say Samples?
What did I
he
say?
didn't. That's the biggest one, probably.
I did say that's the first damn name I mentioned.
Oh, okay.
You okay? I heard.
You guys are starting to get me. You guys are starting to get me a little bit PTSD yesterday because I mentioned that Belichick's dad coached in the 50s at North Carolina, and you had already said it. But no, I said Rashad Samples, who's from the Dallas area, on the staff at Oregon. But, yeah, it's a pretty good list of candidates they have.
Yeah, that is a good list. And Casey Keeler is a guy who did a really good job there and left probably a pretty good situation, I would think. So anybody I think on that list is interesting, but certainly Rashad Samples would be there near the top for me at least. And, beyond that, I think I just have to probably dive into the details a little bit more. I don't know that I'd pull the trigger on Sean Bell just yet, but I know he's got to be getting close to feeling like he's wanting to get a head coaching job and work his way up. And Matt Pallage, obviously we've seen him up close and personal here. I'd be happy for him if he were to land this job. But that's a nice list for Sam Houston to try and pick from, and I think there's a lot of selections on there that make sense. So I think you kind of have to screw this up to hire the wrong guy, because I think there's more than one right choice here that could be successful.
Garrett McGuire joining his father on the staff at Texas Tech. He was at Nebraska with Matt Rule. Youngin, who is up and coming, very well respected. Also, I saw where Jeff Traylor tweeted this out, and I think everyone knows he's very tied into the Texas High School Coaches Association and coaches. His dad is too, Joey, among others on that staff. But Garrett McGuire is now joining his father's staff at Texas Tech.
Yeah, well thought of up-and-comer in the coaching business. And I'm not surprised to see this happen eventually. Like, it might have happened. It actually happened longer after I thought it would, but he was up in Nebraska for a couple years now. He's back with old Pa Joey in Lubbock.
Yeah, so he's going to, help out with running backs, and that's, a move that needed to be made because Zach Kitley left, and he took some guys with him, and so spot opened up, and you've got the new staff rolling in, but you didn't have to look very far if you were Joey McGuire, so I'm sure that's going to be fun for he and Garrett to reunite and be on a staff together and see how all that works out. And Garrett's very well thought of as far as a young up-and-coming coach who is kind of pointed in the direction of being the leader of his own program down the line at some point. But it was interesting. This video stuck with me for like a week afterwards. I found it bizarre, and now it all makes sense in a lot of ways. But Matt Rule, when he hired Dana Holgerson, there's a video out there of him doing a press conference like the day after they hired the wide receivers coach. And he's explaining like why they hired their new wide receivers coach. And he's like, I talked to Dana, who obviously had just come in like a few weeks before. And he said and I don't know all the Nebraska coaches' names off the top of my head, but he's like, hey, Matt, I love this guy, I love that guy, I love this guy. but I need to bring in, like, my guy, wide receiver. The only guy he said he didn't love was Garrett. Like, the only guy he didn't mention was Garrett. Like, he's like, I love Tony, I love Mike, I love Bill, but I really want, like, my guy as wide receivers coach, and Garrett's name was never mentioned. And I just found that odd. Like, does Dana not like him because you didn't say his name? And I don't think it's that necessarily, but clearly Dana had his own vision for the offense. Garrett didn't have a spot on that offense any longer, so he was available. And Joey gives him the call. He certainly has the number in the pull there, so that makes a lot of sense for them. And I think he's a guy who's, again, got a very bright future, so we'll see what he can do out there in Lubbock. But I think that Tech has been one of the more proactive and busy programs here in these first couple of weeks of the offseason. I think they see how close they are knocking on the door, 8 and 9 wins, and how open the Big 12 is. And they've, not all these moves have been made by their own choosing. Obviously, Zach Kitley chose to go take a head coaching job and created some of this domino effect, but I've been impressed by how quickly they've moved, and a hire like a Mac Leftwich. I think they're doing a good job early this offseason. So, yeah, Garrett ought to be interesting to see how that plays out.
I agree with Paul that when he left Baylor and Matt Rule went to Carolina, he went to Carolina with him along with a few others on the staff. And then when he went to Nebraska, it was a great hire because they needed to get back in the state of Texas, which they had lost a lot of that, and he helped with that. But after a couple of years, it's now time. He's now a part of his dad's staff, father's staff, Joey McGuire. He'll stand on his own, too. He's a very good coach. We'll get to some college football awards later in the show, some that have been given out, others that will be given out tonight.
We have a real quick coaching note before we break, if you didn't see my text.
No,
okay. Oklahoma State has their offensive coordinator.
Oh, Meacham.
Yeah, Doug Meacham.
Okay, Doug Meacham, who's been around, and, of course, at TCU and did a really good job with them. Now the offensive coordinator for Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State. Again, Meacham and a lot of these guys, we know what they run. They're going to run that thing and let it go and let it fly and try to put up a bunch of yards and do it fast, and he did that at TCU for a while.
Yeah, I mean, that's a guy who knows the Big 12 really well, has a lot of experience, as you said, primarily at TCU is where most will know him from, and wide open offense. And, I mean, it's an offense, so Gundy's still going to be heavily involved in whatever they do on that side of the football. But, yeah, you needed to fill that spot, and a lot of people were fed up and very ready to wipe their hands clean of Casey Dunn, and especially there at the end. Something had to give, and Gundy quickly made some moves, and obviously some moves needed to be made, including movement on like his official positioning within the program at this point. And so once that all settled down, it's time to get back to making hires. And so I think this is a respectable hire. I don't think it drastically changes anybody's ideas about TCU next season, but I think it's one that maybe just reinforces that you think they'll bounce back and have a much better year than they did in 2024.
We'll break. We have Sam Kahn, his thoughts about the coaching hires and more. We'll also today have Adam Rittenberg from ESPN in the 5 o'clock hour. Craig Smoak with Off the Radar, Paul Catalina with his top 5, and we'll also dip into the transfer portal with some news and notes of interest, too. There's a lot to get to, but we just covered a bunch of the coaching carousel. Now the biggest jobs all filled with West Virginia and also with North Carolina, and now UNLV has also filled their job. Thanks for those of you watching either in the chat or on YouTube. Also, 365 Sports, YouTube, on Twitter, YT, and then Sikkim 365 app. This is 365 Sports.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgin Ford. Join us for our Black Friday sale where over $16 million in inventory is on sale right now. This month only, get a 24 F-150 for under $500 a month, or a 24 Bronco, only $470 a month. Selection and save all month long at Bird Collision Ford during our Black Friday sales event. Visit us anytime at bkford.com or come by and experience better at BK Ford.
I'll never get used to this.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more. Fast just got faster.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
365 Sports rode along with our great friend. There he is, Sam Kahn, and his throne, theathletic.com college football columnist. That chair, the way you're sitting in that chair behind you, makes you look like you got like those big, broad shoulder muscles. Like you have been pounding the weights, and maybe you do. Sam, thanks for your time. Man, what a couple of days with Belichick, and we'll start with Rich Rod at West Virginia. Belichick's a huge story, but Rich Rod going back to West Virginia where he had success, left in the middle of the night. They need somebody to give them a spark. Your thoughts about it?
It's fascinating to me because if you'd have told a West Virginia fan in 2007, after the way that thing ended, that he'd be back as a head coach, I bet you nobody would have believed you. It's interesting to see how this developed. I started hearing this a couple weeks back, actually right before the final week of the season, that there was some push and some buzz in West Virginia for this move, particularly with the boosters, who were, I think, really wanting to inject some juice and some energy into this program. And one thing about Rich Rodriguez is if you look back at his track record, I don't think there's really much of a question about his coaching acumen. He did have a little bit of a rough stint in Michigan, but beyond that, he's been pretty successful at every other program he's been. And obviously what he's done at Jacksonville State, getting that program into the transition to the FBS, they've done really well since he's been there. And I think he's still got it. And the thing for West Virginia is I think the level of excitement that this brings after what's happened the last couple of years. Obviously, they had the really good season on the hot seat year for Neil Brown, but this year, obviously, it ended really badly in that Texas Tech game. And I think they just felt like it was time to move on, and this brings them back to a level of excitement that I think they really need.
Sam, who do you think is set up to be more successful quicker, Scott Frost or Rich Rodriguez?
Probably Rich Rodriguez, just because he's been in the college game more recently. I know Scott kind of took a year where he wasn't doing as much, and Rich has been running a program. The Scott Frost hire was really interesting to me. I would say I was a little bit puzzled by it just because I understand the success that he had there the first time and how great they were. But that was a long time ago. That was before the transfer portal existed. That was before NIL, before the one-time transfer rule. And I know that a lot of the factors at Nebraska and his failure are unrelated to what helped him be successful at UCF. I think there was a lot of pressure on him, on the prodigal son coming home and wanting to succeed at your alma mater. That's an unspoken pressure that I think is very difficult to deal with, that he doesn't have to deal with UCF. But the game has changed a lot since he was last in Orlando. So I am more wait and see on Scott Frost. If he gets it going again and they start rolling, then, that good for them and I'll be impressed. But if I was betting on which one I think is going to get better results sooner, I think it's going to be Rich Rod in West Virginia.
There is still the Sam Houston job open right now, Sam, and I just thought it was an interesting cast of guys that appear to be finalists for that job. Sean Bell, Matt Powledge, Phil Longo, Tim Dowse, Rashad Samples, Curtis Looper. You have any sort of a feel one way or the other, or any feeling like one of those guys might be the best bet here? It seems like a really interesting, diverse mix of guys there for the Bearcats.
Yeah, it really is. And I think it's a really good list for that job, which, by the way, is one of the hardest jobs in the FBS. They have as few resources as anybody financially, from coaching staff, head coaching salary, coaching staff pool, NIL. I don't want to say it's non-existent, but it's very, very minimal. So this is a very difficult job. So to have that list of what I think is a lot of quality coaches is really impressive for Bobby Williams and Sam Houston. The names I had heard the most in these circles have been Powledge, Doused, Bell, and Longo. Those have been the ones that have trended the most. The Samples one is interesting. I'd heard that one early on. I wasn't sure how deeply they would look into that, but obviously he's a finalist, and I think he's a really bright guy, really young, obviously, and it would be a first-time head coaching gig for him. Honestly, it'd be a first-time head coaching gig for a lot of these guys. But that's an intriguing one to me. That would definitely be different from what I expected them. It sounded to me when Bobby Williams opened this job that he wanted somebody or preferred somebody that was familiar with Sam Houston. And that's where Powledge comes in because of his background in Huntsville, his time there, being a player there. Longo's coach there, Dowse's coach there. So the guys with those ties to university, I think there is a little bit of an internal preference for that, because I think Bobby Williams feels like it's a place you got to understand, really, especially when you're given the resource challenges. But it's going to be interesting to see how this unfolds. I don't think they can really go wrong with any of these choices.
It's amazing about Sam Houston State. I'm an SFA guy. We hated each other back, the big rivalry, and it really was very intense. They had fights after games and stuff, crazy stuff. Like, we've never seen that before. But how much they have separated from who they were, or what most everyone remains. Tarleton State's doing that too, and maybe because you can do that in the state of Texas with the talent, but man, they're all in. They've moved up, and they can't afford to miss on this one with Casey leaving, who had done such a great job.
Yeah, that's the thing, that I think Casey Keeler's job and what he did was really undersold and underrated nationally, just because obviously this is a program that's new to the FBS, and so people don't really pay attention to it nationally. But when you look at, okay, he won at the FCS level, won the national championship, and yes, they had success before him with Willie Fritz. That's a program that's been successful for more than a decade. But the transition to FBS is not easy. Not everyone is James Madison and had the kind of success they had right away. You guys remember last year, they went 0-8, and they won some real gut-wrenching losses. There was some real difficult defeats that they took, and he did a great job of taking a really holistic view of the program, making some improvements, holding on to as many guys as he could despite minimal resources, and really flipping that thing in a short amount of time. And doing that transition after playing for a national championship, and then all of a sudden you have a year where you're not playing for anything before the transition, and you're trying to redshirt guys, and you're trying to keep guys there, and all of these different challenges with, again, minimal resources. I think Keeler did a fantastic job. I think Temple hit a home run with hiring him. But when you look at, to your point, Smoak, with where they are, they wanted to make this move. It was difficult. It's challenging. It's not going to be without its bumps in the road. They're on the lower end of the budget in terms of the schools that are their peers in the conference. They're on the lower end of athletic budget. I think they're around like $25 million, trying to get to $30 million. So it's going to be an uphill battle, but you can bypass some of those growing pains if you nail the right coach, which they have the last two with Fritz and with Keeler. And now they're going to have to hope to do it again.
Sam, Connor Wegman on his way to Houston. It's funny with him. I saw him. A lot of services had him ranked as like the 4th or 5th best quarterback in the portal. I thought that was a little low for a guy who was 4-1 as a starter in the SEC this year, whose only loss was to Notre Dame. And just simply, I think his thing at A&M was, 1, health, and 2, he didn't fit their system anymore. And Marcel Reed has dynamic athleticism that not many human beings have, and they kind of wanted to make a go with him. I think for Willie Fritz in Houston, especially, theoretically still, having some depth there at the position, I think this is a home run and a half.
Yeah, for Houston, absolutely. Especially when you talk about how bad they were offensively. They need somebody who can really give them a spark. And they're going to have to outfit him with some better talent around him, especially at receiver. I think it looks like they're holding on to Stephon Johnson, which is huge. But Joseph Manjack, I think, hit the portal, and there's some others. So that's they're going to have to rebuild the receiver room. I see they're attacking the offensive line in the portal, too. That's really important. But to your point, I think it was huge for them. And when you think about what they're going to do offensively with Slade Nagel, if it looks like what it did at Tulane in 2023 with Michael Pratt, I think there's real potential here for Houston and for Connor Wegman. I was talking about this with a personnel guy in college, and he said, hey, look, if you look at what they did offensively at Tulane with Michael Pratt, there's nothing that Michael Pratt did that they asked him to do at Tulane that Connor Wegman cannot do. He can do everything that Pratt did. And so if you can plug him into that offense and use him in a similar way, surround him with the weapons, I think there's a chance this thing could really take off. And I agree with you. I don't think Wegman's a bad player. I think the circumstances really got to him this year. I think the injuries have obviously hurt him throughout his career. But when he was healthy those first 2 years, he really looked great. And then even this year, when he got back from the injury, that first game against Mizzou, he looked like the guy that I thought we saw as a freshman and a sophomore. I agree with you that the system, I don't think, fit him. We talked about that a lot this year. I just don't think Colin Klein's system is a fit for his skills. It fits Reed a lot better, in my opinion. And so getting into a system that I think will fit him better and will be tailored a little bit more to his skills will help him thrive, I think, when he gets to Houston.
Sam, I know this is very general, but there's been so much going on, so I'll leave it open-ended. Has there been any portal move that really particularly stood out to you? Like, oh, that's interesting, or, oh, wow, I can't, like that kind of a moment. Has there been one for you yet in this year's portal cycle?
Yeah, I was really surprised at Malik Murphy hitting the portal out of Duke.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting that. There was a lot of the names that went in the first day. You always get some surprises. I would say a lot of them, from what I had heard and just calling around and the lead up to this, were expected. But the Murphy one was one. When that popped up Monday night, I was like, oh, wow, I didn't realize that was that situation. Even though I think a week before we had kind of checked in on that, and it didn't sound like a week before that was heading that way. So I'm really curious to see where he's going to go, what the market for him is like, because I think he's a really talented, physically gifted quarterback. There are still some flaws, and there's still some room to grow for him as a player, but he did really well. They led him to a 9-3 record, threw for, I think, 26 touchdowns, which is a school record for them. So he's a talented player, and we all saw what he did in his limited time at Texas. So he's going to make whoever gets him pretty happy. But I thought Duke made out like a bandit with getting Darian Mensah, because I think Mensah's the best quarterback in this cycle. I have him above Jackson Arnold, above Wegman. I think when you think of how many years of eligibility he has, his physical talent, the potential, his instincts, his accuracy, the whole nine, I think he's going to really thrive. And you pair him with that offense that they use over there. Jonathan Brewer used to be at SMU, the scheme that they kind of run, which is similar to what SMU is doing. I think he can really thrive in that. But Murphy's the one that really surprised me.
Sam, what are your thoughts on the Heisman this weekend? And if you have a vote, I know you can't say it. I can't either. But your thoughts, I mean, you have two guys who are incredibly special in their own way. And it does seem it's hard to separate them, but you have to. And they're a part of the finalists, of course, Dylan Gabriel and also Cam Ward. Should anyone else have been added to that list, although they got to kind of minimize it a little bit? But your thoughts about how you make a decision between those two?
Yeah, it's really difficult. This is a year, in my opinion, where you can say this about both of the top candidates, is that if it were any other year, they would be the runaway winner. I think in any other year without each other in the race, Travis Hunter could be the runaway winner, or Ashton Jeanty could have been the runaway winner in a different circumstance. But alas, here we are. And so it is really difficult to delineate. I think you're going to have some people who look at Travis Hunter and what he did on both sides of the ball, not just good. He was great. One thing I want to smash is this narrative that he was just a good player on both sides of the ball. That's BS. He was a great player. And anybody, like I know you guys did, who watched Big 12 football every week, that guy brought it every single week, except for the times he was injured. And so I was really impressed by what he did. But then you look at Genty, and not only did he consistently run and be productive and get close to, we're talking about an all-time record rushing, but he lifted a team to the playoffs. I mean, this is unprecedented for Boise State. And we know, obviously, they went to the BCS and they did all that back in the day, but this is a new era in college football where you're not necessarily supposed to be able to compete at this level. But Boise State went toe-to-toe with the number one team in the country, and he ran for over 200 yards against them. That's incredible. And so it's really difficult. I think either one of them is deserving. And to your point, should there have been anybody else in the finalist ceremony? Yeah, I would have had Cam Scatteraboo in the finalist list. And I really wish they would take 5 finalists every year. I don't think we have to limit it to 4. I wish they'd take 5 every year. And if I had a choice for a 5th, I would have had Scatteraboo on that list. But to me, where Arizona State was at the start of this year and where we thought they were going to be, and where they are now, he deserves so much credit for that, because he really is kind of the heart and soul of that team. He's so tough, he's so physical, and he is such a dynamic offensive weapon for them. And I even remember, I'm sure you guys remember last year watching, and there were some points last year when they were having quarterback situations that he was their offense. It was snap it to Cam Scatteraboo and just let him go. And he just built on that and just became an elite player, both as a runner and a receiver out of the backfield. Just a tremendous all-around player. But I think it's a good crop that we have of finalists, and I'm excited to see how it plays out.
Sam, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Paul, anything else?
No,
Greg, get up. Thank you, buddy. Great to see you. Good to have you. Are you going to get the playoffs start a week from Friday, a week from tomorrow? So it's a holiday right after that. What are your plans as a guy that has to cover everything and be everywhere? We're going to be in Houston for a day or two with their bowl game against LSU, but just curious about you and a chance to get away and decompress.
I sure hope so. I hope at least to get. I always try to at least to get the 24th, the 25th off. If I get that, then I call it a win. I think we should, but I'll be covering Texas on the 21st, and probably with Texas throughout the balance. However long they go in the postseason is how long I'll follow them. So, and then of course in the rest of this month I'm covering the transfer portal. So that's kept me busy enough in this last week. So I've got plenty to keep me busy until then, but I hope to unplug my phone for at least a couple days around Christmas.
Shame on you. No, I appreciate it, Sam. Always great to have you on. Love it. TheAthletic.com covers college football like a blanket, and even will be doing so, like many of us, during the holidays on and off, although we'll have a break during that Christmas week. We do get to some of those college football awards a little bit later in the show today, along with also that transfer portal, which is never ending, is it?
Well, there is a big note from the transfer portal that concerns you, quite frankly, as one of the biggest and highest-rated players in that transfer portal. Williams Nwaneri of Missouri, edge rusher, former 5-star, is heading to Nebraska. The former number 6 prospect in the 2024 class. So all of 1 year he lasted at Missouri, and there is a video out there from when he committed and the coaches going crazy and all of that that's circulating now, especially 1 year later, because he's not even heading out. He's going to Nebraska, of all places. As a Missouri fan, like the double whammy of your 5-star was a one and done, and now he's going to go play for the Huskers. So big get for Matt Rule. Williams Nwaneri, 5-star edge rusher, going to Nebraska.
Yeah, that's good. They lost some defensive starters already. I don't know if they'll have anybody all of them, and because of Florida State stealing people. But he had 2 tackles, 1 sack in 4 games.
Yeah, and he only played 4 because he was a true freshman.
Yeah, I know, but when you're a 5-star edge guy, you expect maybe a little bit more, like a couple more disruptors.
You know what? You don't get him anymore. We're going to go get you a 3-star high school player. You can have that guy instead.
Well, they lost a guy that was pretty good that's going to maybe FSU.
But I'll take the 5-star guy who's a redshirt freshman over the walk-on, warm heart story right now any day.
5.5
Bart
sacks.
Hargelbeck from Omaha, that's, plays hard and has a great motor.
Hey, that's how they had a lot of those guys on those great teams. But I saw that just now. Good. They need many more of that kind of player. Phil Snow will turn him in to an absolute nightmare.
Here's the other thing. They don't have to deal with the fact that he didn't know how to lift weights the way that college teams wanted him to. And, he probably didn't have that great of a diet because high school kids don't. You get one in every million high school kids understands what you're supposed to eat and does it. All the rest of them don't care because they don't need to because you're a high school kid. Then you get to college and you've got dietitians and,
Wait a minute. Who was the son of the former great offensive lineman at Oklahoma, Roberts, that came to Baylor and ate 17 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches a day? He had great nutrition with that.
But it's.
I don't think that was great nutrition.
That was Greg
I think that was
Roberts.
good bulking for what he needed to get done.
He played in the NFL too.
I don't know that 17 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches a day is like a really healthy long-term fitness plan, but it worked. He got his scholarship. He got the size put on that he needed. But yeah, I don't know that's the best black to white example necessarily. But I think that to Paul's point, I mean, yeah, he's a guy you don't have to flush out all of the true freshman type of stuff. Like he knows what it's like to be in a big time program, big time balancing act of going to classes and doing the weight stuff. So yeah, he's already got that out of his system and. Hopefully he did, but yeah, you assume that he did, and so hit the field and start trying to draw out that 5-star talent if you're Matt Rule and Phil Snow. But I do like them bringing in Phil Snow. I think it's also one of those levers, though, you pull if you're Matt Rule, and it's like, how many other levers do you have, right? Like you start to bring in Phil Snow, I talk about ace up the sleeve earlier with some of these ADs and their coaching hires. I feel like Phil Snow's an ace up Matt Rule sleeve, right?
Question.
He's pulling that card out now, and it's like, okay, well, you're landing a 5-star edge rusher. You need to do something with it. I think Phil Snow will, so that's a good pickup for them.
I traded a text with him. In fact, the morning before that story came out about getting him on, and then he was told he couldn't come on the show because I think he's now officially a part of the Nebraska football department. We'll have a word with Matt Rule on that. We'll see if we'll take that damn Huskers helmet down quickly. All right, when we come back, a lot to get to. Dave Aranda on the team's reaction to playing against LSU, who, of course, he knows about, and he was there when they won the national title, plus an SEC team. And we have much more to look at, a couple of those Big 12 bowl games, the transfer portal, college football awards. There's much more to get to today, and this is 365 Sports. Baylor and also LSU in Houston on New Year's Eve. The Baylor alumni fan engagement will have a setup in the city of Houston, and I will eventually get a list of all the activities they have, even 2 or 3 days before the bowl game, from Doug Furch and also Paul Thorpe. They travel. When Baylor travels, they travel, and they'll have various events, even maybe gatherings and speaking engagements and much more in the city of Houston, where they go all the time anyway when they have their tour for basketball and football coaches. Doug Furch and also Paul Thorpe do a great job of setting up events wherever Baylor goes. It could be the Big 12 basketball tournament. It could be a bowl game, which, of course, they weren't a part of last year, so that they're going to have a great time with that. And then even on game day of what they do as well. Baylor fan engagement, Baylor alumni fan engagement. Go to baylor.edu for more information.
Oh, Richard Carr, Buick, GMC, how lovely are your SUVs. Oh, Richard Carr, Buick, GMC, I love the trucks you have for me. Strong and tough with luxury, room for all my family. Oh, Richard Carr, Buick, GMC, you are the dealership for me.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm, welcome home.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. This segment is brought to you by Michelob Ultra. It's only worth it if you enjoy it. Containing only 95 calories and 2.6 carbs.
I had someone tell me today that there's going to be a new Michelob Ultra beer that's going to be released sometime at the start of the year, so they'll look for that if you want. By the way, I just went to our Twitter page at 365 Sports YT with a lot of you on there watching, and we appreciate that. Now, Dave Aranda, LSU, was on the staff with Orgeron when they won the national title. SEC team. Yeah, they may have a lot of guys bolt between now and, New Year's Eve, but they're playing an SEC team, and I don't care if it's a team full throttle or not. I don't give a damn. I don't care about it. But, hey, Baylor might have some leave too, and have. But how did his players react, and what does it mean to him? He has connections there, among others, about playing LSU and that game on December 31st.
We talked to the players after the Kansas game and asked them about going bowling and where they would like to go, and pretty much they were like, wherever. But Bryson did mention that, it'd be cool to play an SEC team, if they got that opportunity. What was just sort of the reaction among the guys when y'all learned, it was the Texas Bowl, it was LSU? I mean, what's just kind of been the mindset?
They're excited about it. And I was talking with a couple guys this morning, just in particular, walking in, and we were talking about this very thing. And they're excited about the opportunity to play against a team that they respect, that scouts are going to want to look at in terms of eval. Right, it's an opportunity to put good play on tape versus a good opponent, and our guys are out hunting for respect, and so they see our opponent as a way to go and compete and fight and earn some respect. And so I think that's a strong motivation. It's pretty strong motivation right now.
Dave Aranda on the game with LSU and the game against an SEC team on the 31st, December 31st in Houston at NRG Stadium. Last time they were there, they played Illinois, and that was in 2010. We had discussed that game with Phil Bennett on Monday. Illinois, Bennett was hired after that game, Illinois beat them up pretty good. They were just better physically in many, many ways. All right, the transfer portal. And we'll get back to also a couple of the Big 12 bowl games too. But the biggest name in the transfer portal, we mentioned the one from Missouri, the kid going to Nebraska, Connor Wigman, who Sam Kahn responded about what he thought about the quarterback from Tulane is the number one quarterback in the portal who's headed to Duke. Malik Murphy, another. Connor Wigman going right down the street where he played football at Bridgeland High School to play for Willie Fritz.
Yeah, like I said before, I like it for them. I think that the Michael Pratt comparison is very fair, and that's going to be a boon for him. Now they gotta find some weapons for him, but I do think that there are several in the portal that would help out.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys out there that could be brought in to surround him with, and so I'm sure that's what Houston's busy getting down to right now is figuring out who those guys are. But I think Wigman's a player who has a ton of potential, still has flashed that in College Station. I know that there was obviously a very vocally negative contingent surrounding him, at certain points there. But I think that he's a guy who didn't leave College Station with his tail tucked between his legs or wasn't cut out for the gig or anything like that. I think it just didn't work out there. And I think then Marcel Reed slid in. You're like, okay, I think that fits a little bit better. Like that, I could still wear the other one, but this one fits a lot better for what I'm trying to do. And so it just became a matter of, well, this is not the right environment for you anymore. Best for you to look around and see what other opportunities are out there. And so he did, and I think that Houston's a terrific opportunity. I think, obviously, being close to home can be a real pull for guys, and being the hometown hero, he's been that before in high school, but now a chance to do it at the college level had to be quite appealing. I think the system they run there makes sense for him and what they appear to or what it appears they're trying to now do. And Willie Fritz is a guy who I think showed this year that he's one hell of a football coach. In case you didn't know that, you should have known that already if you're a college football fan, but just in case, he took a team that was only in some polls above Arizona State simply because Arizona State wasn't known by anybody really in the Big 12. Like, maybe guys knew about Cam Scatterbo. But even then, they weren't putting the respect on his name that they're putting on right now. So, they got a good running back. Beyond that, like young head coach, recent sanctions, things like that. Just nobody knew what to expect from Arizona State. And for that reason, they were the only team that perhaps beat out Houston for the argument in the preseason of who's going to be the worst team in the league. Otherwise, if you take Arizona State out of the equation, I think it would have been nearly unanimous that Houston was going to be the worst team in the Big 12. And they far exceeded expectations. And that little flirtation with upsetting Oklahoma and Norman, you thought, the Sooners maybe aren't as good as we thought, or it's just an off night. Well, then they turn around and go do what they did the rest of the season. You're going, no, that was like they gave people fits. Now, they also got their asses kicked a bunch of times, couldn't score points. Their offense was atrocious. I don't know what this means for Zion Chris, but he wasn't good enough that you don't go and make a move to get a former 5-star caliber player like Connor Wigman. Like, this is a massive upgrade for them from Chris and Donovan Smith both. So I think it's exciting. It's got to be one of the highest rated players they've ever signed. I didn't go dig into that exactly, but I mean, Ed Oliver previously was the highest. He's not that level, but he's got to be one of the highest players just in general they've ever brought in. So this is the kind of move that creates a little bit of a buzz, and I think that they need that and could use that. And there's a lot of changes going on, but one thing's for sure is you're dealing with a lot more house money than you thought Willie Fritz would be dealing with, because they were able to scrap together what they did during the regular season to give you a little bit of a glimpse of like, okay, like there's a long way to go here, but they're flirting with making a freaking bowl game here, people. Like that was shocking given the weight of some of their losses. So, yeah, this makes them better immediately and makes them a lot better, in my opinion.
They need offense. I'll never forget what a Baylor staff member said to me before they played Houston is that this will be our toughest test against the defense. And even some that, like, scoffed at that. It was. I mean, that was a tough game, but luckily for Baylor, fortunately, they had just a little bit more because Sawyer Robertson had a bad day. But they were tough, but they need somebody to get the ball in the end zone, quarterbacks, receivers, etc. Also, they're working on that offensive line. I know they have a couple of transfers coming in from the offensive line, which you never have too many of those. And so there we are with Connor Wigman to Houston.
Yeah, and he's got a couple of years. Zion Chris is still a guy out there as a sophomore with at least a couple of years remaining. So, anything, you've addressed some quarterback depth and you've created some competition. And I think based on what we saw from Zion Chris, you needed to bring in some competition. You needed to bring in more talent. He didn't do anything, respectfully, that would lead you down the road of like, oh, no, we're good here. So, I think that he could use the competition. That room needs it. And I don't know, what his idea is in his head of – because, certain situations, like you bring in a guy and the other guy reacts to that negatively. I don't know that that'll be the case with Zion Chris. And besides, he just had surgery. I don't know what the timetable is for him as far as a recovery. But, I think he's probably going to embrace that competition, but he's got to get healthy first.
All right. The Florida State Seminoles were 13-0 last year. They were 2-10 this year. DJ did not do the job.
You wanted to give it a go, didn't you? And you got scared at the end.
Ugalele.
Uiagalelei.
Him too. Neither one of them were good.
Here's the thing.
One of them was good one game, and one of them was good one half.
I don't care if you call him DJ Smith. He didn't earn having his last name.
And he wasn't the only problem.
No,
Let's not try to.
He wasn't even the biggest.
He was the scapegoat.
He wasn't even the biggest problem. He wasn't good.
He wasn't good early in the season. It was the quarterback, and then the season kept going, and you're like, wait a second.
I was stunned that they were so inefficient. This could be the savior.
We'll see. 18 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Got injured.
Boston College
came back, got benched, then went in the portal left the team before the season was over. And here's what I'm going to say. I don't know what happened. And I know Bill O'Brien is not a genteel, loving soul when it comes to these things. He's kind of all business. If you go back to
He's very impatient with quarterbacks, I would believe.
He's very impatient with human beings. Just in general.
You've never met him.
I just know, like, you say that, Smokey, but I've read enough about him and seen what he did in Houston.
He's a curmudgeon.
Yeah, he's a curmudgeon. Yeah. I've met DeAndre Hopkins once before. He seemed like a nice guy, and everybody in Houston loved him, and he ran him out of town and traded him for nothing. So, maybe this is a personality conflict. I'm not giving all the – I don't know what happened. But it's not surprising to me to see, year one, guy run out. It happens. He was a Gus Malzahn signee before he went to Boston College. And then he transferred there because he couldn't beat out John Rice Plumlee. Now he's back. He's an outstanding athlete. The two best games of his career have come against Florida State. In 2013, he took them down to the wire. In 2023, down to the wire.
Would he beat Jameis?
Yeah, 2023 down to the wire. 2024 absolutely ripped them 7 shades of a new a-hole.
Everybody almost did.
Yeah, but he particularly
I remember that game.
Yeah, he really did it.
He was good.
So, the FSU, but to make him successful, they need to fix what they thought wasn't their problem going in. They doubled down thinking that the lines, offense and defense, would be their strength last year, and they weren't. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, he got beat out ultimately at Boston College by a Texas guy in Grayson James from Duncanville, who had transferred into BC from FIU, and that was the tail there at the end. Then he entered the portal, and I think he's a small guy. That can make him like Kyler Murray, hard to grab hold of, but it also, is something you got to be mindful of. That he's not the biggest dude in the world, but he is very quick. He can make plays. Really, I think all that you needed to see if you're Florida State is just watching the game film of him against you. Like, to Paul's point of, I think when a lot of people saw him, they were like, this dude's he's incredible.
Hey, there we go.
Yeah, but he's incredible, and you were probably watching the Florida State game. Because if you watched him against Florida State, you're like, wow, this dude's amazing.
Yeah.
And so they got an up-close view, and they saw him at his peak. But I do think that there's a feeling of maybe they reacted too quickly of why didn't we let more quarterbacks enter the portal? Is this really the guy that you're going to hang your career in Tallahassee on if you're Mike Norvell? Mm-hmm. Because he's not a sure thing. He's not even as much of a sure thing as DJU appeared to be maybe a big thing at the
DJU thing experiment was shocking to me that it went so far fast so quickly.
I don't think people were surprised that it didn't go well, but I think
I was.
How quickly it didn't go well.
I thought he was a better, had better mobility. But let's talk about this. I thought the guy was fantastic when I did watch him, because I remember watching him against FSU. He has a lot of something to him, and he throws the ball well for a tiny guy, even though, or I say tiny, but a small guy. But it'll be fun. FSU trying to rebuild their roster, to rebuild the staff and all that stuff, and he now will get a shot at trying to lead the Seminoles into back to reality, back to being relevant. It's hard to say that when they were 13-0 at this time a year ago.
It's an interesting pickup, but it's not one, if you're a Florida State fan, that you're probably hoping for. Is that fair to say? I think you were hoping for a bigger fish. Would that be fair? Especially with Norvell's seat.
It's not over.
No, it's not. They probably will go get another guy at some point in
It's
time.
not over.
But I do think he's an interesting pickup.
The old barn cat, go K-State, before you go back to what you're talking about, Paul. 1999 Super Chat. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. I will send you Bracket Cat's number. I told him I wanted commission to send the number. Thank you so much. I'll get that to you.
Yeah, and I just think, it's going to be one of those things if John Mateer jumps in here in a week and then goes, you know what, I didn't really like Ben Arbuckle that much. And you're going to go, oh, well, that's not good. Those are the ones that are going to sting, but he's got 1 year of eligibility. The biggest thing they need to do is develop a quarterback, which they actually did with Jordan Travis, even though he was a transfer. They developed him, but after that, this whole, they've got this, they went from being a dynasty in the 90s to being this kind of shoot up, and they get a lottery ticket every now and again. They hit a scratcher, and then, and then they blow all that money and have to hit another scratcher.
Malachi Nelson, I believe, was the #1 ranked quarterback coming out of high school, committed to Oklahoma, changed his mind when Lincoln Riley went to USC, transferred to UNLV. He now is in the portal because Boise feels pretty good about who they have at quarterback.
Yeah. Did you say he went to UNLV?
I mean Boise.
Yeah. Boise State.
He was going to go to Oklahoma, transferred, of course, with Lincoln Riley, went straight to USC, transferred to Boise State. He now is in the portal.
Yeah, so, just making clear there. So, Maddox Matson was the guy for Boise State, and this is just one of those tales of the surefire, 5-star, big-time prospect recruit at quarterback that has been unable to really find his footing at the college level. And so an example, at least as of right now in this career, of an overhyping of a guy and the investment for those who have invested so far, not seeing it a payoff at this point. I'm not surprised to see him get into the portal. I mean, you had to sit there basically the entire year and watch as Genty and Matson, were the stars of that offense for Boise State. So with a young quarterback in front of you, you're not going to get playing time. People expected him when he went to Boise, he's just going to beat out Matson.
Yep.
And he didn't, and he's not going to at this point. And you've got a couple years you'd have to wait. So, I just think that this makes sense for Malachi Nelson. I'm just curious now of what is the market for him in comparison to what it was even a year ago when he ended up at Boise, and much less 2 years ago when he had USC and all those teams beating down his door. So, already on your third team at this point, that's not a great feeling, I'm sure, nor is it a great look. But somebody somewhere out there is going to – there's still talent.
He's still a 5-star guy coming out of high school. I don't think we've seen those flail before, but he still seems to have all the tools.
When we talked to BJ Rains earlier in the year about it, he's just going to – he's like, no, well, Maddox Matson's the guy. And Malachi Nelson came in knowing that. He just liked the situation at Boise State for him in the moment. So, but now he's a redshirt sophomore.
Well, he's stuck, and Matson's a sophomore.
Yeah,
he's got to go somewhere.
He's got to go somewhere. So maybe this is a little bit of a different situation. But I'm curious. There's going to be some interesting quarterback battles of guys who are really high-rated recruits. Ohio State, Georgia, with Gunnar Stockton and Jaden Rashada next year. Then you look at Ohio State, they've got Aaron Noland and Julian Sand that are going to battle it out in the spring. And then wherever Malachi Nelson goes, I expect it to be kind of a similar thing.
Well, it'll be interesting if Quinn Ewers comes back for another year. Arch is not leaving Texas, but that would at least be an interesting storyline.
I'm going to tell you right now, Quinn said, hey, Sark, I'm coming back. He'd be like, yeah, let's talk about that.
Kind of like Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State or Mac Brown at North Carolina? Yeah.
I mean, there'd be options. I think Quinn's bound for the NFL at this point. I don't know what you're going to do to come back and get better, and I don't know that you feel all that confident you're going to come back and be that much better.
Two things. If they win the national championship and he's the quarterback, get the hell out of there. Go take advantage of it. And if he doesn't, then you're right. I mean, if they go 1 or 2 or 3 rounds deep. All right. College football awards. Heisman Trophy will be announced Saturday evening. Today, the Associated Press named Colorado's Travis Hunter Jr., the two-way standout, the College Football Player of the Year, 43 votes. He got 26 of the 43, and Ashton Jeanty ended up with, I think he had how many votes? 16. Finished second with 16 votes. So he got 26. Jeanty got 16, and those are the two main guys out of 43 for the AP College Football Player of the Year.
I mean, I think it's pretty clear those are the two dudes in most of these awards for the overall Player of the Year. Those are going to be the two highest vote getters this Saturday for the Heisman, barring some just shocking voting by people across the country. I mean, it appears it's those two guys. So, yeah, I think if you're hopeful for Travis Hunter to win the Heisman, then maybe this is an award that you see him win. You go, okay, that's a good sign. The percentages and all that maybe he'll go and pick up another prestigious one this Saturday. But I am curious to see what that final Heisman vote breakdown looks like, whoever it is. If it's Ashton Jeanty, I mean, that's going to be historic on a level of just a player at a program like that, beating out players who are at quote-unquote bigger programs. That's going to be fascinating. And if not, I mean, it's going to be a huge deal for Colorado, a huge feather in the cap for Deion, a huge achievement for Travis Hunter and his teammates. But I will be very interested in what the vote breakdown looks like. Does he dominate if he wins, or was it like really neck and neck with he and Jeanty? I'm curious about that because in the public discourse, it seems very, very tight.
Here's going to be an interesting historical lesson for all of us. This is the history of the AP. Now, there's the Maxwell Award and others that are huge awards for Player of the Year. Last year, Jaden Daniels won it. He won the Heisman. 2 years ago, Caleb Williams won it. He won the Heisman. Bryce Young won it. Devontae Smith, Joe Burrow.
It's all Heisman, yeah.
Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, Lamar Jackson, Christian McCaffrey did not win the Heisman in 15. Marcus Mariota did not win it. Jameis Winston in 13 did. Manziel in 12. RG3 in 11. Cam Newton in 10. And Ndamukong Suh in 9. Sam Bradford in 08. So, I mean, Tim, this is probably about 80-90% of the time the AP Player of the Year appears to have won the Heisman the same year.
So, basically, like 17 of the last 20
that's a good
have been Heisman winners that also
Troy
won the
Smith in
Player of the
06.
Year.
Well, I'm like looking for a guy that was kind of a little bit of a surprise, and he won it at the same year, too. So, yeah.
Well, that bodes well for Travis Hunter. And, again, I don't think any of us would be surprised if he's the winner. I think if I had to put money on it, and I haven't looked at the Vegas odds because I just don't typically do that with the Heisman, but maybe that's an indicator as well. I haven't looked, though, but having no knowledge of what those odds look like right now off the top of my head, I would say – just if I had to guess, that Travis Hunter is the slight favorite over Ashton Jeanty. So I think that probably plays out again this year.
I think so, too. That's the feeling I get. The feeling I also get is you wonder, which I hope to God nobody who has one of the 900 votes, and me included, that nobody there's any kind of anti-Colorado or Deion or whatever. If that's the case, pull their damn vote. But I understand emotions can get into it just like anything with Hall of Fame. But Travis Hunter was amazing. Ashton Jeanty amazing, along with the others that are there, Dylan Gabriel and Cam Ward. Now, Kelvin Banks. Man, he got hurt in that game with Georgia, and they had 2 weeks ago, wasn't it, against A&M?
That was last weekend.
Kelvin Banks?
Oh, no.
Oh, he got hurt against A&M. Yeah. And, I mean, that freshman Goolsby came in and played really well. Now, Georgia's a different animal. Won the Lombardi Award for the best lineman in college football. Good for him. He is an absolute island out there and perfectly fit to protect your backside when he's playing at the offensive tackle position.
Where's he, Paul, in the mock draft?
Oh, he's up there. He's up there. Yeah. I mean, he's a guy that a lot of people want. I see him mostly in the top 20. You know, this is not a super deep year for offensive linemen, but you're going to have guys, Kelvin Banks, Will Campbell, Emory Jones, Jonas, I don't want to say his name wrong, from Arizona will probably be up there. He's very highly thought of. So there's not a ton of guys. Parker Brailsford at center for Alabama, probably the top rated at that position. But Kelvin Banks very well could be the first offensive lineman off the board. He's very, very good.
Yeah, he is. He's really, really, really good. So he wins that award. Now, how about this one? The Butkus Award to Jalen Carter, Georgia. Unbelievable player. Do you know he was not even first team SEC? I think he missed some games, didn't he? Miss a couple of. He missed some games. 11 and 13. They're 11. Both of them that came back in that Texas game and were unbelievable. Wins the Butkus Award, and he's just a freaking reeking, just unbelievable, a wrecking ball.
Honestly, when I voted for this earlier this year, like there's some really good linebackers in the country, but it was one of those things like who you put in first. It's like, well, it's Jalen Walker. Like he's the best one. Like that's not. It was kind of like my vote in the Thorpe Award, which I'm surprised wasn't so obvious. They were like, who's the best one? Like, yeah, you can pick the guy with the most interceptions, or you can pick the guy with the most sacks or whatever, but who's the best one? Isn't that what the award says? Like, who do you think the best one is? Well, to me, it was like, and I know that was Travis Hunter, but Jalen Walker to me, I think was just super obvious on that.
All right, so there's that one. And there's the Paul Hornung Award. And of course, Travis Hunter wins that one, too, for the most versatile player in college football. Now, Craig, there's some more awards that are going out tonight, right? I don't know if Home Depot still sponsors that or not. Some of them have already been given out, but it's an award show tonight in college football.
Yeah, it's still the Home Depot College Awards. That's still the name of it. And Savai Na is what you're trying to pronounce over there, Paul.
Savai Na.
Yeah, he's Arizona
DJ
Uiagalelei.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. What's the Tennessee quarterback's name?
Nico Mialiava.
Almost.
Sure, close enough. But yeah.
Bite me.
Yeah. There is the Home Depot College Football Awards tonight, so there will be a lot of the major awards that haven't been announced yet getting announced. That will include the Bednarik, Bolitnikoff, Groza, Ray Guy, Maxwell, Davey O'Brien, Outland, Thorpe, and the Doak Walker. All of those awards are getting doled out later on tonight. So we can't, and we don't want to, I don't think, go over all of these awards. But you do have Travis Hunter that's up for the Bednarik, along with Abdul Carter of Penn State and also Caleb Downs of Ohio State. That was a good little pickup in the portal for the Buckeyes, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You got the Bolitnikoff. Now, this one's very interesting. Tetairoa McMillan of Arizona, Travis Hunter of Colorado, and Nick Nash of San Jose State. Are you guys allowed to unveil your ballots here in this regard?
I think we could, but I don't think we should.
Okay. Well, if I was voting,
it's already been. It's not going to change. Like,
yeah. Well, I mean, there could be a write-in.
Yeah.
No. Okay. Go ahead, Paul. Who did you vote for Bolitnikoff?
For Bolitnikoff, read the finalists to me again. So
Travis Hunter, Tetairoa McMillan, and Nick Nash.
I voted for Travis Hunter.
I voted for Nick Nash. He put up numbers that were just so much higher. I don't care who he plays for, they were like unbelievably better. McMillan, obviously, I just thought there was a couple of games down the stretch. McMillan and Arizona weren't very good. Travis Hunter's phenomenal. I think he's a better corner than a receiver. I think he's great at both. But Nick Nash just put up huge numbers.
Yeah, I think that's a award I really thought, like at midway point, that's Tetairoa McMillan's to lose.
Yep.
And I do think the way they played down the stretch, it would probably cost him that award, but he's going to be great in the NFL. And Travis Hunter, Nick Nash, I think whoever gets that one there, of those two, certainly deserving. And if McMillan were to pull the upset, then hey, great for the Wildcats. They could definitely use some good news. I found this of interest. Florida State had a very forgettable year. Would we all agree?
Can we go back to Nash for a second?
Go ahead.
Because I know 104 catches, 1,382 yards, 16 touchdowns. Now, Hunter had 14, and very similar. And then, obviously, we know about what McMillan did. He was third overall with 1,319 yards, but the only 8 touchdowns. And I think like 4 of them were in one game early in the year from Fifita. Okay, move on.
Yeah, I mean, I think Hunter doing that in the Big 12 is maybe a little bit more impressive. But if you want to give it to Nick Nash, I'm not gonna argue with you over that. No, we can all agree that Florida State was terrible this year. I was polite the first time around, but straight to the point. But hey, man, their special teams.
Hey, when you're terrible, you're good punters.
Yeah. You got Lou Groza finalist and Ryan Fitzgerald and a Ray Guy finalist in Alex Mastromano. So a lot of kicking going on for Florida State.
And here's the thing. The field goal kicker, you and I, we debated about this one.
Okay, it's the best one, right? He's the best one.
He didn't kick
the best
a lot.
one.
He didn't.
He didn't have a lot of opportunities.
Yeah.
yeah. His opportunities were limited in comparison
Well,
to some other guys.
Autry at the Cowboys, they suck on offense, and he's got 52 field goals of 50 yards or more. He overcame that.
Yeah. But also, his coach was smart enough to put him in the game.
When they got to the midfield.
Yeah, it's like, this is our best thing. Mike Norvell was in a position quite often before you said Jackrabbit that a field goal wasn't going to help you. Like you'd have had to kick 11 of them to even make a dent, and you weren't going to have 11 possessions. So, yeah, he's the best one. Alex Mastromano is a fantastic punter. The worst news for Florida State this offseason when it comes to that roster clearing out is both of them are redshirt seniors and they're gone.
Oh.
Like that's the worst news when it comes to who's going to be back or not that you want back. Those two won't be back.
No, so they both have chances to win. I thought it was interesting to see Florida State there have finalists for both of those awards. But Maxwell, Genty, Hunter, Gabriel, the finalists there. Davey O'Brien, you got Shador Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, Cam Ward, the finalists there. Do you guys have any preference? Because that's one where I feel like you really could go three different ways and make an argument there. If you don't want to reveal for sake of pushing away our audience.
There's a lot of things we voted for, and you get some of them. I want to make sure I get the Maxwell. I don't want to reveal that one.
Okay.
Because that's for college football's player of the year, and from that one. Yeah. When it came to, what was the quarterback? Well, the United Davey O'Brien Award. Gabriel, Shador.
I voted for Shador.
And Cam Ward.
Yeah,
I think I voted for Shador on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's going to be an interesting one. I think Shador's a very valid
I did vote
pick
for
there.
Shador. I remember I did. That was another one where I grinded on it, though.
Yeah, let me run through these last couple, or three, actually. The Outland, you'll have Kelvin Banks of Texas, Michigan's Mason Graham, and also Ole Miss's Walter Nolan. Both those guys, D linemen, obviously. Thorpe Award, Jade Barron of Texas, Ohio State's Caleb Downs, and Malachi Starks of Georgia for the best defensive back in the country. And I think Texas has obviously a lot of history with that award they're very proud of. So if Barron could join that group, that'd be a really big deal for them. And then there's the Doak Walker, Ashton Genty, Omarion Hampton, North Carolina, Caleb Johnson of Iowa. If Ashton Genty doesn't win that one, that would be kind of a shocker.
I almost didn't want to vote for anybody else, even though those guys are all really good. I voted for Ashton Genty.
For the best running back in America?
They give you the way they give you the vote is they have
3, 2, 1.
They have 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
And so
first, second, third place.
Yeah, so you vote Ashton Genty, and then you have to pick the 2 and the 3. And I just I don't even know what I did. I was just click, like 1, click, submit, doesn't matter on the other 2. So no offense to Caleb Johnson and all that, but you know.
So I think that's pretty
knife
clear.
To a gunfight.
Let me tell you something about the Thorpe Award. Johnny Barron's unbelievable. Caleb Downs, I remember saying what Nick Saban said earlier this year. He was maybe the best player on Alabama's team last year. And the fact he left for Ohio State, like you said, what a great pickup for the Buckeyes.
Yep, so there's the awards that will be doled out tonight. There's some others as well, but that'll be on ESPN at some point. I think it's 8 o'clock, so kind of a later start time. If you're interested in that sort of thing, all these awards will be decided and unveiled. And I don't know how they actually do the setup, because I know they did remote after they used to do the big whole convention center and all of that. But either way, however they unveil it this year, they will have that later on tonight so you can see for yourself. And obviously there's some flavor from all of the conferences there for whoever you root for.
All right, let's get to the college football playoff discussion. 12 teams, we know who they are. There was a little drama. Was it going to be Alabama or SMU? So I want to start with this. Brett McMurphy, who's been on this show many, many times, right before the standings were released, put out a tweet about it's SMU. And Rich Clark, a good friend of the show, college football executive director, was asked about it. I was furious. I told all involved, you've betrayed the process. There's only a certain number of people who know. I know one thing. Remember, this is a military guy. It wasn't me. Their selection committee, ESPN, and our staff, someone in that group is the leak. And McMurphy had it like maybe 2 minutes or so before they put out the standings. But you wonder if they can figure out who it was. Who's going to throw themselves on the sword?
Well, there is maybe a way to help this problem, increase transparency on the back end of it so that you don't have people doing this. But, yeah, I mean, I don't know how you stop it because, again, he doesn't have subpoena power, right? He can't just say, all right, everybody give me your phones. ESPN can't do that. No one can. So, I doubt he'll ever know unless
he's a former general.
Yeah, okay.
He's a retired general. He has his ways.
All right, but he can't legally.
It's called getting him in front of, like, pulling out fingernails or some things like that.
That's not legal. So again,
waterboard
legal.
Mac Rose.
Yes.
Yeah, like legal. Like he can't do anything about that. So and he might be able to question people and get them to sweat it out, but I doubt he'll
find
ever
out.
know.
I guarantee you. Next year, if there's somebody missing from those who are part of it this year, then they're the person. You find out when you get to know some of the ADs, or you find out kind of within a conference who's maybe a mole or someone that might say things that don't get quoted. That's something, or maybe even media relations. That's something I've learned along the way.
I do wonder, though. I mean, it's not really that big of a deal, but why do that, though? Like, why give it to Brett a few minutes before? Like, what's the...
All right, let me ask you this. If you are the one who gets it, would you put it up?
Yeah, I would.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm Brett, of course.
Brett McMurphy's not beholden to the College Football Playoff Committee in any way, shape, or form. Like, he got some information that was... And look, Brett, again, he was just on the show the other day, is one of the best in our industry at what he does. So he's not going with it unless he knew it was from a rock-solid source. So, yeah, I mean, so it knew it was factual and knew it was... But, yeah, Brett has no, responsibility to them as the committee. So, no, yeah, I'd go with it. I'd go with an heartbeat.
You could also have just watched what the odds were in Vegas leading up to the release of the standings, because Alabama was eventually taken off the board before the standings were released, and SMU remained on the board as far as who's going to have a chance to get to the playoff and win a national title. That also could have happened. Now, have we played a game in the college football playoff? Garrett, have we played a game, sir, among the 12 teams?
No, we have not.
The games won't be played till a week from tomorrow, right?
Correct.
And they're already talking about 12.
Well, we're at 12.
14. The commissioners, this is from Rich Clark, the commissioners will look at 14, a better number, after they see the results of the playoff. How can we make it better? 14 is one of the options. Staying at 12 is also one of the options. Sankey, our good friend of the SEC, to bring up what he said, we're seeing stress points that we knew would be there, but I actually think there are as many or more volatile than we thought. Now we have a whole different dynamic when it comes to conferences, so we'll see what happens. He mentioned that not everything looks like it did with the conferences back when they agreed a few years ago on 12, and so there's Greg Sankey and him, of course, propping up the SEC. Again.
His quote here, though, I like a lot.
Right.
Because it cracks me up. I need to have a much better understanding with their decision-making than I have right now. I will tell you, this is what people who have entitlement issues say when something happens to them that never happens.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair thing to say on his part, though, because you really do need to see it play out.
Yeah.
Like, we do need to see what this looks like. It might suck. Like, you might look at this back. I don't think it's going to in any way, shape, or form, but you might look at this and go, there has to be a better way. This did not go the way that we thought. Now, how would that happen? I don't know. Maybe like a bunch of first-round blowouts or something. I don't know, but I do think with anything, especially the first time ever, it's more than fair to want to see how it works before going and making a comment. I actually applaud him, even if it was somewhat tongue-in-cheek for, like, his purposes. He's the SEC commissioner, though, guys. Like, so he's supposed to be pro-SEC.
Oh, no, yeah. It's just sometimes it's the way he says.
No,
Put that quote back up, Garrett, if you don't mind.
It's definitely the way that he says some things, and definitely his attitude in some ways that can rub you very wrong. By the way, we're going to request credentials every year, and we're going to make a bit out of it, because if we keep getting denied to SEC Media Days, it's just going to get funnier and give me more ammunition.
I did that one time with a coach, day 27. I haven't heard back from him. He eventually broke. Yeah, so we're going to do that.
We're going to keep applying and just see what this bit turns into over the next few years.
So David Letterman used to have one about trying to book Oprah on his show.
Yep.
And he would he had his
Jimmy
Oprah,
Kimmel, Matt Damon.
He had his Oprah.
Now,
he had his Oprah logbook, and the only's like Oprah logbook day 200. It's no call back. And then the biggest day he had was Oprah's people respond, not yet.
Yeah.
And he was like, not yet. That means it'll happen eventually. Yeah.
One of the other things about Sankey, and he's right here. Now we have a whole different conference dynamic. So what happens? He was talking about some of the stress points, but that is a good point because of what happened with the Pac-12 in between doing 12 and having 12.
He was also one of the guys that came up with the format and then helped blow up 2 conferences.
He also brought up that back after 97 with Michigan, Nebraska, splitting it, that they wanted to go to a less human element, a more human element rather than the BCS, which then went on for how many years it was. There's no perfect way, unless you were to have a certain amount of teams and you have a true bracket like they're trying to do. But I just wanted to put up that quote from Sankey. Rich Clark also said, hey, yeah, we'll look at it. The more games, by the way, means what? More money.
Well, and we had somebody the other day ask about reseeding after the first round, and Sankey is one of those guys that was in favor of that, and we know he's going to have a lot of say in whatever they do next. I do think the Super League conversation starting to bubble up again, because you're just seeing some of the writing on the wall when it comes to like his public comments about the playoff and revisiting it and all that. Like, if anybody else said that, you wouldn't really give it much the time of day unless it was, coming from the Big Ten and Tony Petitti. Because what's Brett Yormark? Like, Brett Yormark says it, there's immediately going to be Big Ten and SEC fan bases are like, yeah, whatever, dude. Like, you don't have a say like the way that our guys have a say. And there's probably a lot of truth to that, because you do have the wielding of all of the biggest brands for the most part. But he's definitely going to have a big say in it. They clearly are already starting to figure this out for the next couple of years, because they only have a couple years to figure it out.
But this year and next, they got to make the decision on what they do after 26, like in the next few months.
Yeah, but I'm with him on there being some curveballs, because you didn't expect that the Pac-12 was going to turn into a bunch of Big 12 and Big 10 schools, or that that was going to go anyway the ways that it went. So, yeah, the environment has changed, but he will definitely, as much as we're kind of poking, he will definitely have a lot of say. And there will be, I'm sure, a lot of threats and leveraging of their
muscle
weight.
Up.
Yeah.
By the way, I do hope we have a Boise State OU type of game this year inside of the not to bring it up for Oklahoma, Craig, but we need a couple of those games, or we need TCU type of Michigan without losing 65-7. Now, Craig's got off the radar, but I want to get to this. We've had this throughout the week. So SMU in their first year in the ACC. Remember, they have the Success Initiative that was put together really to appease Florida State, Clemson, and maybe one or two others, right? The more you do, the more that you do well, the more you get paid. SMU is assured of at least $7.2 million bonus for bowl eligibility and the college football playoff ranking. An additional $16 million is available if they do the absolutely unthinkable and go and claim a national title. I got this sent to me from Lion Bear on the site. So, despite no money from the ACC revenue distribution when it comes to the TV contract, they still get money for other things that are going on. Additionally, each conference receives $300,000 for each of the schools that continue to win, and that's split up. So, there's more money than that. SMU is not getting Tier 1 media. They get everything else, including the ACC network distribution, postseason stuff like March Madness, the college football playoff, I brought that up. So they are getting money, and then they're making up with their alums and donors the money they're not getting, $30 million or whatever, $35 million from the TV revenue. But they're bringing in some cash, and even the first year in the ACC.
Well, and the ACC's got to be over the moon with the boost that they're getting.
SMU made the ACC some money.
Yeah, they absolutely made them some money and gave them a shot at a national championship that they otherwise, may not have had. But, yeah, I think that they've done a really good job. I know it's easy to sit there and poke at SMU and their rich type fans in some ways, or, whatever it is about them. They've been the butt of a lot of jokes over the last few decades, but you have to give them an immense amount of credit, man. They're in the playoff before Texas A&M. I'll repeat that. They're in the playoff before Texas A&M.
Yeah.
They're in the playoff before all the other Texas schools, save for Texas. So they did a tremendous job in just taking full advantage of this opportunity. I think they have a great coach. I think that it's going to be hard to keep fending people away when it comes to Rhett Lashley in the ensuing years, but they have the money to do that. They've got a really good young quarterback as well. They get credit, but probably not enough credit when they get talked about how good and how well-rounded they really are, how stout they are on defense. So, yeah, what a story. I still feel like the Big 12 was better off not adding them because we had those conversations. I don't think it would have added much, and I don't think they'd necessarily be in this position either. But whatever, it's worked out for them, and all of the jokes about paying your own way and all that, well, it's already paying off in a massive
Not to
way.
mention the momentum from what they do from here on out because of what they've done. No question. Okay, Craig, we'll come back with Off the Radar. A lot of things to get to today. We do have Adam Rittenberg, ESPN, a little after 5 o'clock, and Paul's Top 5 a little bit after 5, a little before 6. And Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com at 5:30. This is 365 Sports. Emery, we're going to have to work on the positioning of this list. It is erratic, your behavior. It is Don Chimador and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center between Richland Drive and Valley Mills in Waco. Joshua and Cheyenne both run it, both know it, and I was there. I haven't been there since I got back from Florida, but before I left for Florida, went by and bought myself some cigars to have with my brothers on that beautiful 17th floor view in the balcony off the east coast of Florida. And we just sit out there and talk, and that's kind of how we reminisce and just enjoy ourselves. And I also, my brother-in-law's wife, Cheryl, has a lot of pain in her hip. And they have what is called for bad days. It's a gummy, and it helps to get rid of chronic pain, or to at least calm it down a little bit. And I took her a couple of 3 packages of that too. There's Vita Dreams. It's a CBD. It's a gummy. You take 1, 2, or how many you need, and it allows you to kind of relax your mind as you go to fall asleep. I used to toss and turn all the time. I don't do that as much. There's still some days when I don't know why, but the CBD product of Vita Dreams has made a huge difference. Cheyenne knows all about it. Joshua knows all about it. It's Don Chimador and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center in Waco.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is Craig Smoak's Off the Radar, presented by Alliance Bank. They take pride in making banking easy. AllianceBankTexas.com.
Welcome into Off the Radar here on 365 Sports. Those just joining us maybe for the first time, just a segment to take a look around the rest of the sports world. Still include college football as it warrants, but an opportunity to also just look outside a little bit of what we normally discuss a couple of times each week. But as I said, it will still entail some college football notes, including one that I thought was perfect for this segment and is always something that I find a little bit interesting, and that's guys and their journeys to going from college to the pros, signing apparel deals and doing things like that as they get ready to make that big jump. Now, that's one part I feel like we haven't seen as much of in this NIL world as I was expecting to, was like the college athletes really doing it up for like the brands. You know what I mean? Like Nike and Adidas and all that. And I guess there's been a little bit of stuff here and there. But Travis Hunter has made his big decision as far as who will be his main logo of choice moving forward as a professional athlete. And he has signed an endorsement deal ahead of the Heisman Trophy ceremony this weekend with Adidas. So he's going 3 stripes, Patrick Mahomes. Wonder if like just that in general is making that brand more of a destination maybe than it was even a couple of years ago. But either way, Travis Hunter is going to be signing with the 3 stripes, and he'll be a part of various marketing campaigns. He's obviously got a really big week going on. He might have the Heisman Trophy on Saturday, but in addition to Patrick Mahomes, who is by far the top headliner at Adidas, they've also got Micah Parsons of the Dallas Cowboys, obviously a big-time player. You also have Michael Penix Jr., Rome Odunze from Washington last year were big-time stars. And I believe Cam Ward may have also signed with Adidas as well. So that's cool. I mean, that's not something that was really on my radar, hence off the radar. But that was cool to see him sign with Adidas. And they might have, I don't know what like the Google trend searches are as far as the most Googled football players in the world over the past year. But I know Patrick Mahomes has to be close to number 1. Mm-hmm. And I know that there's probably like Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson or whatever. But I'd imagine Travis Hunter's pretty well up there as well.
I would think Kelsey would be among the top 1, 2, or 3.
For sure.
The most Googled players, this is 23, so it's not, well, no, 23. Let's do that, okay? Just to throw it out there. No, those are, it took me to a list of soccer with Messi and all of them. So that ended that possibility for me.
I have nothing.
I just want to sit out and I just wanted to sit out for a second and just let that linger. That big. Oh, okay. Well, no. Damn it. Well, yeah. I mean, there's lists out there we can
you
find
guys,
maybe
you
for
know
the next
what?
segment.
You're both turning on me. Emery is edgy lately.
And look,
I know Garrett can't stand me.
Emery tapes. Well, you said it before. I want people to know. Emery tapes down the live reads that you have to do for every show because we don't use a lot of paper. You still use a lot of paper. You're old school tree murderer. And because of that, quite often your lives get lost in the shuffle. So we started taping it down. Emery half-assed it today. He quarter-assed it.
No, it's not even pointing my direction, and we will have a discussion after the show. Craig, I'm not sure. I'm going to go back to trying to find NFL Google, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, I'd imagine, like I said, searches that Patrick Mahomes is very high up there. Kelsey probably, yes. Josh Allen, those people that you typically would expect to be. But I would think just overall football, Travis Hunter's up there. So point being, between he and Cam Ward, Adidas has signed a couple of the biggest stars in the college game. You add that with Patrick Mahomes and some of the others that I mentioned, like a Micah Parsons. And that's a pretty good group of guys they've got marketing them right now. It's really solid, actually. And I know Nike's probably got more volume, but Patrick Mahomes and Travis Hunter, man, like it doesn't get much bigger than those guys right now is the point I'm continuing to make. So, yeah, that's cool and good for Travis Hunter. We'll see if he doesn't have the Heisman Trophy later on this week. But there you go with that. Meanwhile, Bill Belichick, one of the things that he's turning away by coming to the college game is that NFL all-time wins record.
Yes.
But it was very interesting to hear him kind of not be all that enthralled with the NFL and the way things... Was it
like 23 or so away from Chula or something like that?
Yeah. Said he's disgusted with what the NFL has become, and frustrated with NFL team owners who did not buy into his approach, I guess, as he was searching for a gig there to go and break that record. But he was tired of the stupidness in the league, is what he said, and that he saw going to college as more transactional, less relational. Can you imagine that being said about college football back even like a 5 years ago?
More transactional, hell yeah.
I don't think.
No, not like, but pre-NIL. If you said college football is more transactional, less relational, I don't think you would have ever thought that. But now that's absolutely what it's become, and that's what's part of the appeal for him, is that it's less relational and more transactional.
Yeah, I don't know. It's less relational. That's bad. That's a bad thing.
Yeah, I don't feel like that was a very good quote.
17 to 21-year-olds.
But if he thinks his job is going to be easier or more, or there's a different path to success or an easier one, then he's not really got a grip on what college football is right now.
No, I think, or does he? Because he is transactional.
Let me tell you something. I was thinking about this in reference to Belichick.
That's what I'm saying is
that NFL coaches will have less control over their players in college than they have over their players in the NFL because of contracts. But at the same time, rebuilding rosters, you're used to doing that in the NFL. And so you're kind of not thrown off by what it's like now in college. Matt Rule, I don't know if he's ever going to win big at Nebraska or not. He's already lost a lot of starters on defense. They've already got a guy. It's almost like he's running a bad football program that has a lot of picks and also need to sign a bunch of free agents. So I think that guys like that have been in the NFL will have a little bit more success than possibly we thought.
Yeah, I just think, and I brought this up yesterday with Belichick as an example of, there were so many people saying that the way college football is now, it's going to run guys off to the NFL, right? Hey, you get more time off and you get this and that. You don't have to go sit in people's living rooms. You can just sit at the draft and be at the combine and have some private workouts. That's really all you have to do. But, yeah, in his opinion, according to the Seth Wickersham article, he feels that college football is more transactional, less relational, and by that measure, a little bit more clear-cut.
That's crazy.
That is, and that's what I'm saying, is if you'd have said that 5 years ago, people would be like, what are you talking about? It's all about relationships. But you look at the way NIL's unfolded, and, well, it's hard to argue that there's not a lot of just transactional moves being made as opposed to sitting, waiting, building, and not getting what you want right away. Now it's like, I didn't play this year. I'm going to my third school in 3 years, Malachi Nelson. That kind of a deal. So I thought that was kind of damning, even though it was meant as an insult for the NFL. I feel like that was a little bit more damning for college football. But a part of that article, there's a lot of stuff in there. A part of his thinking, according to one of the sources that Wickersham talked to, was, I'll go be the highest draw in college football, and we'll have the greatest coach in the ACC instead of you guys that don't want me anymore because there are people, I guess, who don't want to deserve to be empowered. Everyone's running away from college football. I think Bill thinks this landscape is better for him, more transactional, less relational. In his mind, this is better for me. So anyways, I saw that, and I was just like, damn, that's an interesting quote to come out. But it's clear he was not – he wanted an NFL job. I think he wanted to break this wins record, but it wasn't in the cards for whatever reasons those may be, including people just didn't want the Bill Belichick experience anymore.
Yeah, and look, sometimes it's over.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's over.
Yeah, you don't get to get everything you want. Yeah.
And the other thing is right now, and look, this is true, coaching is kind of a younger man's game and a young man's game. The NFL's, the most exciting coaches in the league outside of Andy Reid are who? They're all young guys. Sean McDermott's a young guy. Sean McVay's a young guy. Kyle Shanahan's a young guy compared to Bill Belichick. Name me a coach who's old and grizzled. I have no idea how old Mike Tomlin is, but he's still young by comparison.
54 or something.
Yeah, but still, he's been coaching, and since his 30s. But
how close am I?
Yeah,
he's 52.
52.
Mike Tomlin?
Yeah. So,
God.
he looks exactly the same age as the day he was
he
hired.
doesn't look any older than he did 30 years ago.
I don't know, but, the young guys are the ones who are more exciting, and that's, I know Dan Quinn's not a young guy, but he's He's got
that young heart.
He wears his hat backwards and jumps around like he's 26 years old.
Yep.
So, I like that's where things are going, and I'm not trying to be ageist here, but if I'm an NFL team, I want Bill Belichick to help me win a Super Bowl pretty fast because I don't know how engaged he's going to be at 75, and also I don't want to just turn the whole organization over to him because that's what he's going to want. North Carolina can do that. I mean, that's fine. Like, they'll work out for him. What are they going to, like, what's Bubba Kenningham going to say? Like, no, I have to have my hand in this. No, it's yours. Run the whole thing. Yeah. So there's no owner. There's just an AD and a president, so it probably is a better fit for how he likes to run things.
Yeah, there was an interesting note about his contract, and that is the fact that he is getting $50 million over 5 years, so that is the base of his deal, but the first 3 years are guaranteed. And then after that, though, the most interesting note, I think, was from Brandon Marks of The Athletic that his buyout before June 1st, 2025 is $10 million, so obviously that's coming up this summer. But after June 1st, it drops to $1 million. So, if you want to keep the door cracked for the ways that he could jump into the NFL waters again, well, there's no buyout. But would the buyout really threaten an NFL team that wanted to get Bill Belichick anyways? I don't think it would, but it's just interesting that already drops down before he'll even have coached a game. So it's $10 million right now, but right before the season it'll drop to $1 million. So that's just kind of interesting. But I don't know. There's more stuff on Bill Belichick. Around the rest of the world, you've got Rams and 49ers tonight on Amazon Prime, as it will be an NFC West matchup between those two for your Thursday night action. I feel like I've seen this game on Thursday Night Football like 5 times already this season. Yeah. Maybe it's just I've seen the Rams a lot. I don't know. But Rams, 49ers. Any thoughts on this game and this meaning for the big picture NFL season?
I watched the Rams-Bills game when I was at the airport in Tampa. And the Rams, I think, still have the ability to possibly kick it into a gear that could be dangerous.
I think they can. I think they can. The 49ers are too injured, but...
Yeah, and San Francisco had a nice win too, but they're like 6 or 7.
Way too injured. They're on their. They're probably going to be on their 5th running back tonight. Isaac Guerrero might try to give it a go. And
where the hell did he come from?
Louisville.
Okay.
And here's
Louisville. I like the way you said it. Another guy who the Cowboys could have drafted and didn't, and contributed to a team this year and helped them win a game. But I digress. Yeah, Patrick Taylor's probably going to be the starting running back for them tonight. They're just so banged up. Deebo Samuel's touchers are down. He and Kyle Shanahan had a talk this week. It's a next year kind of a thing right now for the 49ers. So Shanahan can do like his dad did and basically stick anybody in at running back in that particular offense, although not quite the same this year, and they can be successful.
Yep, so you got that coming your way later on tonight, a little NFL action.
That's a good one, yeah.
As we get into the waning weeks of the regular season. Obviously, only one college football game this weekend, Army-Navy. That coming up on CBS and Paramount Plus on Saturday. Ought to be a good one, Army. The home team, number 22 team in the country, favored by a little less than a touchdown, but that's always a fun game to watch and an absolute classic. And I'll close it out with this. This is a random baseball note. Most people will not care whatsoever, but I just wasn't expecting this. Nathan Eovaldi's coming back to the Texas Rangers.
I liked it. I was worried about that one. And based on the per year, a little higher than I think they wanted to go. But I think they are trying to not lose too much and add to what they had with everybody healthy. They could be dangerous. Also gives them a little bit more time with Rocker and Leiter, with him there in a bit of a more buffer zone. I also love they kind of, you know what they were missing last year? A lot. No, but they were Josh missing Young for half the year. No, but Mitch Garver was so good for them. Yeah. The year before. Now, he went off to Minnesota, or not Minnesota. He went to Seattle and was really bad. Really bad.
They didn't need to give him that big contract.
No, they got
that right, yeah.
So they made a trade that I like. Now, look, he's not an on-base machine, but he's got some bop, and that is Jake Berger from the Marlins. They brought him over as well. I like that move to fit him in that lineup. Can play either of the first or third or be a DH. Yeah. Right? If he's playing third base, it's not really great of a day. Well, or it's Young's going to get hurt. Or it's 19-6. Yeah. He'd be a liability if he happened to play third. But he can play it. Yeah. He can play it. But, yeah.
I was just surprised by that. So I thought he was going to go off into free agency, get himself a big deal somewhere else, thank him for his services and winning a World Series and all that. But he's back in Texas, so that's awesome. He's a Texas native. Obviously, Alvin, the home of Nolan Ryan, the connection was well explored during their World Series run. But 3 years, $75 million for Nathan Eovaldi back with the Rangers. And I lied. I did have one more, and I should have said this with Belichick. But got this from Joseph Duarte, who put this together once
Houston
Belichick
Chronicle
was hired.
Yep.
Joseph of the Houston Chronicle. With the North Carolina hiring of Bill Belichick, who is 72, that does make him the oldest coach in college football. The next oldest head coach
Willie Fritz?
Kirk Ferentz, 69 years old. The third oldest head coach, this one shocked me, but Casey Keeler, 65 years old, of Temple. Okay. I just felt like he's younger. I don't know why. I see a picture of him, and I don't feel like he's that old. But Kyle Whittingham is the fourth oldest head coach.
Although he could beat everybody's ass.
65 years old.
Match. Yep.
And then Willie Fritz,
64?
now the fifth oldest head coach. He is 64 years old. But, Belichick, the only 70-pluser on the list now, and he knocks Ferentz off the pedestal of oldest college football coach.
Here's the deal. North Carolina had one goal when they hired a new football coach. They wanted to get younger. Mack was 73, Belichick 72.
That's the first time I've heard that joke in the last 24 hours.
I know. I wanted to get a note about Mike Tomlin. It still blows me away, okay? He's been coaching the Steelers for 18 years. They're 9-3. They're better than I thought they could possibly be, and Russell Wilson has had a rejuvenation. The stat that still is mind-blowing is he's never had a losing season. In this stretch of really for 2 or 3 decades where teams are up and down the pendulum and they win. He won a Super Bowl his second year. That blows me away that he's never had a losing season. They've had a couple of 8-8s. They had an 8-8 3 times, I believe. 9-8 2 years ago. But that is still a staggering in a volatile league like the NFL that he's never had a losing record.
Yep, so there's a few things off the radar. Mike Tomlin's a great coach. Bill Belichick is old, but also a great coach. We'll see how great he is in college. The Rangers got a big piece back.
I love that.
There's a good little football game on tonight for those starving for some pigskin, Rams and 49ers.
7-6 and 6-7, and 2 teams that need a win because there's only a month left in the season with the 4 weeks remaining. Thank you, Craig, very much. When we come back, Adam Rittenberg from ESPN, his thoughts about Bill Belichick, his thoughts about what's going on with Rich Rodriguez back at West Virginia. Thank you, those who are watching in any way you are, whether it's on Stick of 365 app, on Twitter at 365 Sports YT. I saw you all in there earlier today, and also this YouTube channel, 365 Sports, back in a moment. Marco's Pizza, pizza lovers get it. Bob Mock owns 5 stores in the Waco area. 5. Belmead, Woodway, Robinson, Hewitt, and China Spring. And I think other than maybe 1 or 2 of those, I remember one time we were getting ready pregame for a Midway game, which is in Hewitt off Hewitt Drive. It's also basically Hewitt and Woodway are attached by the hip. And Bob sent over some pizzas from the Hewitt Drive location. I don't know if I've ever ordered at the Robinson location. I've ordered to be delivered at my condo from China Spring and or on 19th Street, in Belmead. And obviously Woodway. 5 locations. The triple pepperoni Magnifico is still blowing my mind. It's pepperoni on top of pepperoni. There is nothing that you can't see the pizza except for the crust. $11.99 for a large. Triple pep is the code word. You can order it delivered. You can go pick it up if you want to. And how about the new chocolate Cinesquares? I need to avoid that like the plague, but it looks really, really good. The mega meal deal, a 1 large topping pizza, cheesy bread, Cinesquares, and much more. Bob Mock, Marco's Pizza, the fastest growing pizza brand in America at marcos.com.
It's the wrap-up the year sales event at Allen Samuels in Waco. Drive off in the 2025 Jeep Compass all-wheel drive for just $25,995. Or take home the 2024 Hornet GT all-wheel drive with a blacktop package for only $28,995. Or save with 2.9% financing for 72 months. And here's something special. First responders and active military save an extra $500 as our way of saying thank you. Don't miss these deals at Allen Samuels in Waco. Come see us today.
Come by. Let's be friends.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, let Automatic Chef tailor a break room solution to your needs. Make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchef.com.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. Don's Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Want to send a message to the show? Jump in the Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue chat room.
365 Sports, we start this third hour. Lead you up until 6. Paul's Top 5 to close out the hour. Mickey Spagnola in just a little bit, but our good friend Adam Rittenberg from ESPN joins Craig Smoak, David Smoak on 365 Sports. Adam, I know you've covered college football for a long, long time, and then everything ramped up, COVID, and then transfer portal, then NIL. It seems like now, I don't think you could take a day off, can you? It's just unbelievable, and then you throw in Belichick, Rich Rod, and possibly Dan Mullen at UNLV over the last couple of days.
Yeah, it's an interesting coaching cycle, right, David, because it hasn't been high in volume and not like overly robust, but certainly the hires have been notable, as you mentioned. Now, this is always a busy time with that, but when you couple it with the portal and high school recruiting just wrapped up, and you got the playoffs to prepare for. Just looking ahead. We've got a month of playoff, which is exciting, but it's also a little bit daunting. That hey, we're nowhere near the finish line, but this is the best part of the year. This is the part that I know I get really excited about as somebody who just hasn't felt that the college football postseason has matched the regular season. And now I think we're going to get much more of that with more teams and more games and just a longer format here beginning next Friday.
Adam, there was the thought that NIL and transfer portal would run away a lot of coaches, and in some cases it has. You see a guy like a Gus Malzahn maybe beating UCF to the punch and taking a job elsewhere and a step down to OC, but seeing a guy like Belichick now come to college football, does that open the floodgates maybe for similar moves of pros now looking at the landscape and going, this is actually more up my alley than the old traditional way? And just your thoughts in general on the Belichick move, just how massive of a swing do you think this was for UNC?
Yeah, it's certainly one that's going to get a lot of attention. Not a guy that we thought would ever come to the college ranks, although in talking to some coaches that have worked for him or know him, he really is genuinely a college football fan. Brett Bielema was telling me that when he was there with the Patriots, he'd have a different college sweatshirt on every day, teams that he really admired. And so he's a guy that's been connected to it. And I talked to Brian Kelly earlier today, and he said obviously when he came down to LSU recently, he didn't know that he was looking to go back in college, but he definitely was looking to get back into coaching. And so it could be partly due to the NFL market, and maybe feeling like this is his best opportunity, but also, feeling that, hey, I can exist in this space because the personnel element has changed to be a little bit more like the NFL. So it's going to be very interesting to see what he can do and how long he wants to do it. And obviously North Carolina seems to be supporting him more so than it has any other coaches. And, we'll see if this works. It's certainly going to be interesting.
You mentioned it's more like the NFL. It actually is more pro football than I think the NFL. And dealing with the lack of actual contracts, which I still think they somehow have to figure that out when it comes to NIL, whatever, and the portal. But, it used to be if you're a really, really good college football coach, Nick Saban or others, you were always maybe Pete Carroll looking at that NFL like that was the final destination. Could it actually not so much go reverse, but we could see this more often?
Well, the thing that I would caution is that until Smokey, there's some more controls in the college space. I don't know how many NFL coaches are going to want to do this, especially guys that are already at that level, because they don't have to recruit. Yep. And their jobs are at least out of season, much more normal than the college assistant coaches are. Now there's some changes and you don't have December recruiting as much, but the college coach job, at least from the guys I talk to, is much more all encompassing, and you're doing camps and you're doing spring recruiting and the roster's always changing. Whereas in the pro, if you're a coach, other than evaluating players for the draft as an assistant coach, your off-field or off-season life is pretty easy. At least relative to some of these college coaches. So maybe at the top, it's something that more guys would be interested in, but I still feel like a lot of the college coaches will tell you that it's still chaos. And as Brian Kelly told me today, maybe Bill Belichick is the right coach to handle the chaos that some of us are struggling with.
So there was that big splash, Adam, but interesting to see a couple of Big 12 schools go with old coaches of theirs. I mean, not just once, but twice. West Virginia with Rich Rodriguez and UCF with Scott Frost. I think both very interesting moves. What say you, and how surprised are you to see – oh, my mic fell. How surprised are you to see both schools decide to go back into the Wayback Machine?
Not really surprised by either. Less surprised by West Virginia. I really – I did a coaching list for that search, and Rich was the first name I had. In large part because I just felt like it was time. And Neil Brown was fine there. Wasn't a disaster by any means, but I think West Virginia fans wanted to get somebody in who had a stronger connection to the past and could sort of, meet expectations that some people feel are out of whack for the actual resources in the program. I think the thing that you guys have, understand, and fans do too, but maybe they need a reminder. The next coach always gets more. So that happened today with Bill Belichick getting more than Mac Brown. Rich Rod will get more than Neil Brown did. And I think part of the fact is, hey, we believe in this guy. We know what this guy can do. He nearly got us to the national championship game back in 2007. So we're going to support him at a level that we feel like he has earned as the coach. And then Scott Frost, similarly at UCF, even though they didn't anticipate a change until Gus took the coordinator job at Florida State, they're going to go all in on Scott Frost because he brings them back to a time when they were on top of the college football world for a little bit. So, definitely some nostalgia hires. In a sense, I think Rich has earned this a little bit more just because of what he did at Jacksonville State and, kind of getting through he was a coordinator at ULM not that long ago, guys, and now he's back in the Big 12. So I really think whatever you think of Rich Rodriguez, he has earned this opportunity. Has Scott Frost? I don't know. I think I'm certainly skeptical after the way that it went at Nebraska, but we also do remember the good work he did at UCF, and that's why he's getting this chance again.
It also doesn't hurt when a fan base is thirsty to win again, right? When it comes to Rich Rod, because when he left, as you meant, he left under the dark of night, and we have a couple of emails. We have a bunch of great Mountaineers fans that are on this chat room or in the YouTube channel. I mean. And they were so close, and people were so frustrated. But the thirst to win will change the perspective of maybe fans if they feel like somebody can get them back to where they were.
No doubt. And I mean, again, it's been a long time, and I think they've seen Rich Rod go through it a bit. The way it ended at Arizona, and getting let go at ULM, and then obviously finding himself at Jacksonville State here. I mean, he's really kind of earned his way back, and I think he represents a time that West Virginia was rolling, and while that was a very difficult period, I remember that having covered Rich at Michigan. I think there's certainly a forgiveness that has taken place now, and they're ready to get back to ideally the way it was in 2007. I think it's going to be hard to do in the Big 12, but it's going to be exciting to see if Rich can do it.
So Adam, this job never came open, but it was looking dicey there at the end of last week. Oklahoma State. Today, Mike Gundy's hiring Doug Meacham as his new offensive coordinator. But How hot was that last week in terms of kind of the both sides sort of coming out publicly and talking about ultimatums and demands and all of this? How ugly did it get in your estimation? And is this a tenable situation moving forward between Mike Gundy and Oklahoma State?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously going into next year very much as a hot seat situation, like many jobs are around the country. But it definitely looked like something that might end in a divorce, which was stunning. I just never got the sense that Oklahoma State as a university wanted to do that. Did some of the regents, perhaps they certainly weren't happy with the way the season went. But I think that as a university, the way that it would have looked for a coach as meaningful to the identity of Oklahoma State athletics as Mike Gundy has been, 18 straight seasons with bowl appearances. No disastrous seasons. You're really gonna fire him after one disastrous season over a contract issue. That would have been a really, really rough end to his tenure. And I think, quite frankly, a very bad look for Oklahoma State. So I'm glad that they found a way to work around this, and we'll see if Mike can get it right, because anything resembling what we saw this year is going to result in a change there in Stillwater.
Adam, I was on the phone with one of our sponsors, Edward Jones, in fact, with Ben Erlinson. He called me earlier today, and one of the things he brought up, and I didn't think about this, the first-round home games happened to be at three massive stadiums: Penn State, Texas, and Ohio State, with 104, 5, 8, 10,000 in each stadium. Notre Dame's, of course, not nearly that big, but still an old relic of a great stadium. I didn't think about that when those came out. Do you think the seedings just happened to be those schools were at home, or do you think there was any rhyme and reason with that?
No, and I mean, Notre Dame's actually up to 80, and they've renovated the stadium, Smoky. We got to get you up there for a game. It's a great place to see a game.
I'd love it.
Friday. Yep. But no, I don't think so. I do wonder, what maybe in the future. We had a lot of discussion last weekend about, do they keep this exact format, or do they, get away, do away with the conference champions, top four getting the buys into the quarterfinals? One idea, and I got to give Jerry Palm credit for this over at CBS, was hosting radio the other day, and he brought this up. Why not just have the seedings go 1 through 12, but then if you're not a conference champion in the top four, you're guaranteed a home campus game. I think that would be a really cool thing to see. So, for example, if Arizona State, is not a top four team, and we're not giving them a bye into the quarterfinal, but they're then hosting a campus site game. I'd love to see that. So I think as this thing evolves, you're going to have some different tweaks to it. But I think those four settings, you couldn't ask for a whole lot better for the very first round of campus games, because I think for a lot of people, I mean, we're all excited to see all the rounds of this thing, but I think the first round on campus postseason for the first time is really going to generate a lot of attention.
Yeah, it's historic. Those stadiums all have an unbelievable history, not to mention a massive amount of capacity. And also, as you mentioned, I actually walked around Notre Dame Stadium back, it was around 6 years ago or so, because they were hosting a women's regional, and Baylor was playing there. And I remember flying into Chicago, then I was on campus in Notre Dame for quite some time, for 3 or 4 days. That was, man, and I tell you what, that's just an amazing campus. It was like gloomy, like now here it is in Texas, gloomy, but I really loved it. So Adam, they're already talking about 14. In your own personal preference, what would you and how would you like to see a national championship, however it is, playoff or whatever, settled?
Again, I'm not against the current format. I would do some different things with the seeding.
Yeah.
I just can't get all broken up, guys, about a 9-3 team, regardless of what league it's in. I just think, I'm okay with a system that is designed to be more diverse in terms of different parts of the country and different leagues being represented, even if the pathways to get in the playoff aren't equal. So, I understand, being an SEC coach and feeling like every game is a war and that your league is so much tougher than the other leagues. Well, yeah, it's a different path for you than it is for other leagues. That's okay in my book. And if you don't like it, go coach in the ACC or the Big 12 or the Mountain West or whatever league you want, because the SEC is going to be different. It doesn't mean you're entitled to 4 or 5 teams every single year. So I'm okay with 12. If it goes to 14, I would imagine there's going to be more guaranteed spots for the Big Ten and the SEC, and the other conferences will still be represented, but in a pretty small sliver of the overall field.
Do you think that Greg Sankey has too much power in college football, or is that just the way it is? And when he says something, it does seem to stick, and it does seem to be sometimes a little bit dark.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just been interesting to see how he's approached the job versus his predecessor, Mike Slive, who was much more understated but had a louder voice behind the scenes. Jim Delaney at times had a loud voice publicly, but I don't know if anyone's really taken this much of a public approach to lobby for the league, and also like to your point, cast these warning shots of, if this doesn't happen, then we're going to basically take our ball and go home. So I think Greg is advocating for his league. I get it, that's his job, but you're also one of the people that created a system that was designed to diversify the playoff and bring in more people into that tent. So you got to live with it sometimes when your league is not that good. And let's just face it, this year was not a banner year for the SEC. It doesn't mean that they won't have a team that will win the national championship. It's very possible. But this is not a memorable year for the SEC that we're going to look back and say, oh, my God, remember when the SEC was dominating college football? That didn't happen this year. That's okay. It might happen next year. But I just don't think that the entire sport has to bend itself to satisfy the SEC and Greg Sankey.
Hey, man, I know you gave us time, had a busy schedule. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time and love what you write, and also love reading it, too. Thank you.
You bet, guys. Thanks for having me.
Adam Rittenberg, ESPN, had a busy day today. Thank you for his time following Off the Radar and before Mickey Spagnola. And he, in fact, is next, and this is 365 Sports. Pioneer Steel and Pipe. Online, it's pioneerboys.com. Historically opened in 1943, and then 2 years ago this month, they opened up a massive facility on the east side of I-35 in Waco with all of what you need to build pretty much anything. From a toolbox to a massive building, from real estate to commercial, anything that is around maybe a ranch or a farm. You need it, they have it, the pipe, steel, metal, and all of the nuts and bolts and gadgets you might need. And they also can help you find the right person. If you have something you need to build and you need help doing it, they can find the right contractor who they trust and know about their history too. Pioneer Steel and Pipe. Pipe, steel, and metal. PioneerBoys.com.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION Solutions.com. Carrion Solutions IT success guaranteed.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Brad Wilson. Investing is time and experience back to you and your money during today's changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Paul left early. He's got an event that he's at tonight. But Craig Smoak's still with me, David Smoak. And right there on that picture is my boy, Mickey Spagnola. I always do this about once or twice a year. Cowboys were in Austin. Was it Austin or San Antonio? It was Austin, I think. And we went to lunch with, was it Craig James?
Babe.
It wasn't.
It was Craig James.
It was right. Craig James, who I saw him on the sideline of the SMU game when they were in the conference championship game. We started talking. We've had you on every year, various places I've been, and you've been right there in the middle of it, covering the Cowboys. Did reality set in that the playoff hopes are all but dead because of the loss and the way it ended? Yeah, we'll get to that, but just the fact that where they are now?
Yeah, there's probably a sliver of hope left. I think they realize they need to win out over these last 4 games, David, and even that might not be enough. But as CeeDee Lamb said today, we got to take care of our part, and we can't worry about what everybody else needs to do, because if we don't take care of our part, then nothing matters. So, even if they get to 9 wins, all Washington has to do is win 1 more, and they got 9. And if they go 500, they have 10 for that last, the 7th seed in the NFC on that last wild card spot. So that eliminates the Cowboys. Then there's the Rams at 7-6. They just need to win a couple games, and they would eliminate the Cowboys. And then there's 3 teams at 6-7, and 2 of those teams have beaten the Cowboys. So yeah, there would be a whole lot of losing that has to happen, even if the Cowboys win out. So I think that reality has set in. I don't see anybody saying, well, I give up. But from a mathematical standpoint, they know what they're up against.
DeMarvion Overshown, in a year where they've had, now Zach Martin has had surgery, and Dak, of course, and they've had other guys in and out. They've had all these injuries. They finally start getting healthy. He, to me, has been the bright spot of, not the only, but pretty much the bright spot of this team. How much of an emotional, forget about physical, that's going to take forever to get back, but the emotional wreckage of that injury.
Yeah, and it has been a heavy emotional hit to this Cowboys, David. And by the way, you can add Zach Martin into that list of guys out for the season. He had his ankle surgery today. And DeMarvion, I don't think I've seen, David, an injury to one player have such a profound effect on so many people, not only on the team, on the coaching staff, but in the entire organization. I mean, it was just like somebody just pounded you in the chest to see a guy that suffered a torn ACL his rookie year and missed that entire season, did all the rehab, got back in time to start this year, played in his 13th game, and then suffers another torn ACL, but this time MCL and PCL to the other knee. And he's going to have surgery in a hurry here. And there's a chance that he may not get back in time for next year. And it was just devastating. You can just tell the way people were talking about it. I don't know if you saw the Micah Parsons interview. He had tears in his eyes. Eric Kendricks, Marvion's linebacker mate, had to measure words trying to talk about it after the game. So many people were hurt. And I don't know if you've seen this, but to show you what this kid has meant to so many people, he's from Tiny Arp, Texas. And
I know that. Yeah.
Familiar where Arp is, but 17, 18 miles from Tyler.
Yep.
And I found out the other day from our buddy Bill Coates that the ARP ISD has proclaimed Friday DeMarvion Overshown Day, and they're asking all the students in whatever class grade you're in, all the staff to wear Cowboys blue and white, to wear a DeMarvian jersey if they had one, a T-shirt, or any other apparel to show support for our Tiger, who they know is suffering emotionally right now after this injury. And where does that happen? Who does that happen to? But that just shows you what he has meant to so many people. And God bless small town Texas to be able to pull that off.
Yeah, especially, you mentioned ARP, Troop is right next to it, a huge rival, or any of those, like you said, smaller towns. It just sucks when that happened. The only thing I was ever concerned about with him, he obviously was a hell of a player in high school. His former head coach, Tony Lowry, used to talk about him to me when we traded emails or texts. Then what he did at Texas, he actually looked like he might end up being a better NFL player than he was a college player based on just, the I guess the way he was rising. But he was fantastic. I always was a little bit concerned, like you would be with a running back who's a little bit too tall, in being mixed up in all of that, because he does seem to be a pretty tall, lengthy, angular linebacker.
And that's funny you point that out, because I was talking to the Cowboys associate trainer, Britt Brown, who's basically in charge of rehab here. And, he was with DeMarvian every step of the way last year, the beginning of, this season, all the way to training camp to get him right. And he couldn't say enough nice things about DeMarvian and how hard he worked. And he said the thing he always feared is he plays so hard. It's like he plays with, just abandon, and that he worries that, he might, he's subject to getting injured the way he plays. And, but yeah, it was a hard thing. And guys were still talking about it in the locker room today, about his loss, and not just his loss as talent on the field, but as a person. And here's DeMarvian. Britt Brown told me that when they were walking him off the field, and I think he understood the severity of his injury. He says, we weren't even in the locker room, and he had told Britt, he goes, I think you got to push me. We got a lot of work to do. Can I get back next year? That's what he was thinking about, not feeling sorry for himself, but what was ahead of him. And I'm telling you, when you hear stuff like that, I know when I get older, I get emotional, right? And I was ready to shed a tear for the kid.
Wow, you just kind of had your voice crack a little bit there. I've known you for a long time. We've done that over the years when it comes to the emotions. All right, there's always the question, and I know that at times you could get frustrated with it if you're Mike McCarthy or whoever, but with Cooper Rush has actually had some pretty good moments over the years as a backup quarterback. In fact, one year he had a really good run when they needed him the most. He's had a couple of nice games, had the big win in Washington. Obviously, Monday night, or was it Monday night? Monday night did not go well. The offense was stuck in the mud in certain ways. But here they ran the ball. I mean, Rico Dowdle, Paul Catalina, and I continue to argue about whether he is a guy that can be a starting running back in the NFL. He says they're playing against bad defenses. Maybe I'm blind, but the guy runs hard. I know he's had issues with injuries over the years, but he looks to me like, why don't they give him 35 carries?
Well, and that's been a question, and one of the answers is, well,
because he's injured a lot.
They don't have enough plays. I would have to look this up to see if Mike was right. He was talking about, they need to be better on third down. And in this game, they were 4 of 10, 40, or I'm sorry, 4 of 12, 33%. And the fact that when it comes to plays, they only had 59 snaps on offense. So McCarthy was talking about opportunities that he just doesn't see. We don't give him enough opportunities, but they don't have the ball enough. But you see, when he got 18 carries, he goes for a season high. He's back-to-back 100-yard games. That's the first Cowboys running back to do that since Pollard in 2022. So, yeah, I think he's capable of being a starting running back. This is his first opportunity to be in this situation. And as the season has gone on, he's gotten better and better and better. But again, you got to have plays. And I think that here's the amazing thing. If you think about how they finished the game on the offensive line and how they probably will start it against Carolina, Chuma Edoga starting at left tackle, right? Okay. Tyler Guyton was supposed to be the starter, and he started the season as the left tackle. As the season went along, even when he struggled a little, then they started using Awesome Richards in there. Well, then they lose Awesome Richards and had to put him on injured reserve. And now they've gone to Chuma Edoga. So that's basically their third left tackle. Now at center, with Cooper Beebe out with a concussion, and doesn't look like he's going to make it out of concussion protocol in time, they're going to take Brock Hoffman, who is the backup at right tackle for Zach Martin. He moves to center. So now he's the backup center, and TJ Bass, who's a third backup guard, now starts at right guard. And yet they ran the ball decently for most of that game. So again, they're so far behind the 8 ball when it comes to these injuries and protecting, by the way, Cooper Rush. He was under duress quite a bit in that game. And then the other thing is, they got CeeDee Lamb playing with a sprained AC joint, and he's been pushing through some pain. And then Brandon Cooks finally gets back after he missed like 7 games. So it's just been a combination of things that are unnatural to have that many injuries at specific positions, to the offensive line, the cornerbacks, the defensive ends, and now the wide receivers. It's just amazing. And so people go, well, what happened? Why is this team not better than it is? Well, I can give you about 13 reasons why, with guys having been on injured reserve.
But they had enough to beat the Commanders. Damn it. I put that on you, buddy. I told you they'll win that game, and they did. Okay, let's get into this, and I know you got to go. We appreciate you staying up there for us. I mentioned Cooper Rush. I get the feeling that there's a huge separation between Dak and Rush, but yet there's also a huge gap between Cooper Rush and Trey Lance. Am I right there?
Yeah, you are. And I mean, he just hasn't played much football, and they keep having to play. Now, at least, having played this past Monday, they had a long break between Thanksgiving and the Monday night game. But now here they are on another short week, and they're just trying to win games. And maybe they give Lance a package to go in there and sort of the Arch Manning package to go in and run the ball just to change things up with the quarterback, which they've done previously in a couple games. And, maybe they get to something like that, but I'm not sure they think he's ready or that he gives them the best chance to win. And they're still trying to win. And, if you go and talk to the guys in the locker room, Smokey, it's like, these guys will tell you, I'm playing for my teammates, but I'm playing for myself too.
Sure.
And there's a lot of guys in there that are on the final year of a contract, or they're guys that got into the league as rookie, undrafted free agents that are just trying to make their way. So these guys aren't about to wave the white flag. They're going to give you everything you got. And it would be a disservice to those types of guys to say, well, we're going to try this quarterback just to see what he can do because we know we're not going anywhere. Well, what are those other guys going to say? Why am I out here busting my ass? And they're telling me they're going to have a quarterback who, hasn't hardly played in the NFL to take over the last 4 games. So, that's the conundrum that they're kind of in right now, because I go talk to, say, Maris Leofau. He's going to start in place of Overshone. Well, he's not going to go out there and slough around. He wants to win a starting job next year. Go ask Cavante Turpin, what his feelings are. And, he tells me, he goes, hey, if I'm on the field, I'm going to compete. I want to win. And right down the line, every one of those guys that has something to play for. You think Chauncey Golston, who's finally getting a chance to start, and has a contract year coming up, that he's going to go out there and not try, or TJ Bass, who's going to get a start. So there's guys out there knowing that there's, maybe is not much on the line for the team as it is for their NFL careers. And so I think you got to honor that by not throwing in the towel.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you. 4 games to go, right?
Yep, 4 left, and better win them all and then see where everything falls.
How many games will the Eagles win the NFC East by?
Well, can they win it this week?
I think they can clinch it.
Right?
But then they might, who knows what they do at the end. Some teams react differently to that. But,
well, if they don't play any better than they did against Carolina last week, they may not be clinching right away.
Yeah, they've played with their food. They used to be a team that started fast, and now they're a team that doesn't know how to start fast, and they hang on at the end. They're 3 games up with 4 to play. Yeah, they can clinch it this weekend just with a straight-out win and maybe a Washington loss.
Well, and they're the poster boards for beware the Panther. They've lost a game. These last 3, after winning 2 straight, they've lost by 3 points, 3 points, and a 6-point loss in a comeback victory by the Eagles this past week.
Isn't that crazy?
And they're favorites.
The Steelers?
No.
The
Panthers.
Yeah, the Panthers. Yeah, you're right.
First time in 34 games.
They've kind of scratched and clawed. Bryce Young's kind of done a couple of things. All right, so I know you got to go. I see
That's
that.
All right, I'm fine.
San Francisco and the Rams tonight. Both teams seem to still be dangerous. The 49ers are really beat up. I saw what the Rams did with Buffalo, which was a great football game on Sunday night. San Francisco have one more push in them, or as if they lose tonight, that'd be 8 losses, and they'd put them to sleep.
They would be in the same boat as the Cowboys, right? With 8 losses, but they have one more win, and they've beaten the Cowboys. The other thing with some of those 6 and 7 teams that are ahead of the Cowboys, not to mention the Rams, who are 7 and 6. So there are games to lose, right? Teams have to lose, but San Francisco and Atlanta both have beaten the Cowboys and would win a head-to-head tie. And the only way the Cowboys catch Washington is, the Commanders can't win 2 more games. Otherwise, they're going to get to 10, and the Cowboys can't get there.
Yeah, they had a good enough start, despite they lost 2 or 3 games in a row. They had a good enough start where that kind of gave them a chance to put themselves in the position, Washington, that they are. I think they have the Saints coming up, which they're Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, after who they were against Dallas.
Playing quarterback for
and Carr was injured. Yep.
Yeah.
All right, buddy. Thank you, man.
Always good to be with you, Smokey.
We will be on the air next week, and then we'll be off the week of Christmas. But we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, buddy.
All right. See ya.
Thank you, Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com. Appreciate his time. Cowboys, man, that ending, that loss was very reminiscent of the Leon Lett play, which we've brought up. But, God, they don't know how to just get blown. Well, they've been blown out a couple of times. They are always drama, always down to the wire drama.
Yeah, that's been pretty much my entire life of watching them for 30-plus years. Is there's always something to it, whether they win or lose. There's some element of drama there. But, yeah, that's a team that's really in search of a lot of just some kind of positive news, it feels like, because things have just gone so sideways in so many different ways this year with all your star players and just the losses piling up and all of that. And it's simultaneously been really fun to be a Commanders fan for the first time in, 30 years. No, not quite.
Well,
there was the RG3 year.
2012.
Beyond that, there was, maybe 1 or 2 other years in that time frame where it's actually been enjoyable, but this year's definitely one of those. And I'm excited about the draft already because I'm looking forward to where does Travis Hunter end up and Shedeur Sanders, and the way it's shaking up right now, like the Raiders are right there at the top pick, the Giants right there at the top pick, the Patriots right there near the top pick. So Shedeur and Travis Hunter both, like especially New York and Las Vegas, look like two very realistic possibilities for those guys, but I know there's a long way to go.
Yeah, the Cowboys this year have lost by 25, 38, 28, and 24 points. They've had a couple of one-score losses too, but they have been blown out in half of their losses. When we come back, Paul Catalina and the top 5, and this is 365 Sports. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, place I've gone to many, many times. I've known them and Brian Bauer, the Bauer family, for many, many, many years. And right now, they've got some Christmas specials available, including holiday beef tenderloin, a whole non-trimmed tenderloin from $11.05 to $29.45, select choice in prime per pound. Trimmed beef tenderloin, $14.99 to $35.99. That's what they have available. Holiday beef tenderloin, and man, you could cook that however you want and have some gravy and a little bit of the fixins. Holiday rib roast, select bonus rib roast is $15.85 a pound. The bone-in rib roast select is $14.65 a pound. They have choice and they have prime. The prime boneless rib roast is $27.50 a pound. Order today. Call them, or you can drop by the location on Lake Air Drive and order it. It's order today at, and I'm not going to give the number. You're going to look them up on Facebook. That's where I'm looking at them right now. Or again, look them up. Google their numbers. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
For Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Well, hello. I'm Paul Catalina, and this is the Top 5. Transfer Fits, Volume 6. This is the last Transfer Fits one we will do for now, because things will start maybe falling into place. And I'm going to give a little inside baseball here. We recorded this on Wednesday. So hopefully nothing happens before the end of the show today that makes this list moot. So this is, I'm running a little bit of a risk here the last couple days of these transfer fits, because people are starting to make their decisions. Number 5. CJ Daniels, wide receiver, LSU. I think he needs to come to Baylor. I think he's a great fit in Jake Spavital's offense. They're going to lose Ashton Hawkins. They're going to lose some other guys. They need someone to step in. He kind of got lost in the shuffle at LSU and got hurt. He was great at Liberty. He fits the system so well. If I'm CJ Daniels, I am putting on the green and gold and coming to Baylor. Garrett, I think you agree with me on this one, right?
He'd be a good fit. He would definitely be a good fit in that offense.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 4, wide receiver DT Sheffield, North Texas. Wants to go to the power conferences for his last year of eligibility. I think he'd be a great fit in Kendall Briles' offense at TCU. He doesn't have to, he didn't even have to move reasonably. Denton to Fort Worth is still maybe a little bit of a hike, but I think he'd be a really good fit. Sonny Dykes, Kendall Briles, that TCU offense, replacing Savion Williams, who's leaving. He's going to be gone. That's a big playmaker they're not going to have. I think he'd be a fantastic fit for the Horned Frogs and a really good fit and could really do some things in the Big 12. Number 3, let's stay with North Texas. Chandler Morris, looking for his fourth school. He started at Oklahoma. He went to TCU. And then he had a great year this year at North Texas. Personally, I don't think he should have left. But since he has, let's deal with the reality of things here and say where he could go and contribute really fast. Don't know who the offensive coordinator is yet at Oklahoma State, but that's where I would go if I were him. They are in desperate need of a quarterback, especially a guy who can bridge the future a little bit to whatever young guy they have. They don't have but 3 guys who started a game on offense coming back, so it's going to be maybe a bit of a mountain to climb. I know he's visiting Memphis as well, but I would certainly consider Oklahoma State if I were Chandler Morris. Mike Gundy has a lot to lose here, so he's going to go all in. I like going to play for coaches who are going to be all in. Number 2, quarterback Matthew Sluka from UNLV. Very famously quit on his team early this year, but let's not dwell on the past. Let's say he learns from it. Where he can contribute, who needs a quarterback, and where can he maybe maximize his skill set. I think Memphis would be a nice fit for him under Ryan Silverfield, one of the most unsung head coaches in the country. Seth Hennigan was great for the Tigers. I think Matthew Sluka could step in there and play very, very well in that system, even though he wound up being the starter but was not the best quarterback in the roster. They didn't miss a beat after he left the team this year. I just would like to give this guy another chance before we condemn him for all times. He made a youthful mistake. He maybe got some bad advice. Let's see where he goes from there. Number 1, quarterback Fernando Mendoza from Cal. This is another one. 2 days in a row, Garrett, I've given you a guy to go to LSU. I don't know what the future is for Garrett Nussmeier, and I'm not sure Garrett Nussmeier knows, which leads me to believe that he may not be back with the Tigers next year. If I'm going to go replace him, this guy, I know a team that did not have a great year. It was not because of their offense. Their defense was really bad. I'm going Fernando Mendoza from Cal. A lot of untapped potential in this guy. Dual threat quarterback, can do a lot of things. Really, really impressive. Put up really nice numbers this year. I would look at LSU. They're going to need a quarterback. Ricky Collins, also one of their high recruits, also in the portal. So they're going to need some quarterback depth there, or it's going to be the A.J. Swan show, which I don't think anybody really wants for 12 games in Baton Rouge. That's going to do it for the top 5. Time to say adios.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate that. Paxton, is Mickey one of your best friends? Yeah, I've known him a long, long time. As far as the media outlets, we've done a lot of stuff together over the years. And Kim Coulter said, hey, you're talking about those blowouts a little bit too much. As a lifelong Cowboys fan that Kim Coulter is. Roger Dodger says Nussmeier staying at LSU. We mentioned that yesterday, did we not, Garrett?
I think it was it became official yesterday.
Yeah, and then also, as Paxton also said, hey, by the way, it's called prime rib. I know, but that's the official name of what I said about the prime rib.
Yeah, on the Nussmeier thing, I think that's going to be maybe the only guy for LSU that's actually playing in the bowl game at this point. But, no, I think that's a good move on his part. I think he's had a really productive year. He's a good quarterback. He's got NFL future ahead of him. So, good to see him staying pat. But if he were to jump in, man, he'd be one of the biggest names, like, right out of the chutes. But that's good for Brian Kelly. That's really good for Brian Kelly that he's not going into the portal.
Yeah, no. He had a presser yesterday, one of those press conferences. We'll peel a couple of things off of that as we move forward. All right, back again tomorrow. We'll be live at 3 o'clock until 6. Paul will be back with us too. Craig Smoak, I'm David Smoak. Thanks to Emery Winter. Young people can create so much havoc with me. And Garrett Ross, I think you're young people too.
Thank you.
So, at least for now. Now, we'll be back again tomorrow. Thank you very much to our great sponsors and those of you who watch us in the chat on the 365 YouTube channel, at 365 Sports YT on Twitter, and on the app at Sikkim 365. David Smoak, have a great night. Good night.